everyone, and welcome to the Simpsons Season 2 live overview. Tis I, Captain Logan, and joining me as always, and the reason we're doing this, it's the Day Ghost! Hello, Austin, how you doing, man?
I'm feeling perfectly cromulent. How are you doing?
Already a reference that I don't remember. Wait, I recognize that. What episode is that from?
Oh god, what episode is that from? I just remember the scene where it happens because Mrs. Krabappel's just like,
Ha, gotcha!
in Biggin, I never heard words like that until I moved to Springfield. And
Oh,
Miss
yeah.
Hoover goes, why? It's a perfectly cromulent word.
I don't remember where that was now either. Anyway, welcome, folks. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for being here live. The 8 of you that are doing that right now, and no, there's less than that at the moment. And thanks for watching after the fact. If you're doing that, we have had a whirlwind, topsy-turvy last couple of days. Apparently, the Simpsons shows are cursed. The first show, and I hope that the power doesn't go out or my kid doesn't get up and unplug the modem for no reason. Last time that happened and the show stopped in the first 20-30 minutes and we had to start over, this time last night my basement flooded half an hour before the show, and my power strips were underwater. And if only the water hadn't gotten over here, I would have still done the show and just dealt with that afterwards, because none of my stuff really got messed up. I gotta deal with carpets and things, and I hope the furniture's all okay. But anyway, it is actually raining outside right now, so I'm really hoping that doesn't happen in the middle of the show.
Yeah, if there's
Here.
suddenly static, you know what happened.
And then I had an interview tonight that I really didn't want to cancel on the guy over, so I thought I could get that knocked out and then do this at 10, which is really late to start a show, but that went over a little bit, so we're starting really late. I apologize to everybody who wanted to watch this live. If you are here, thanks a bunch for doing that. We're going to go ahead and get right into The Simpsons Season 2. I am expecting this to be significantly shorter than the first season overview, but I should never say that. I really don't think, though, that we'll be talking 3 whole hours on this, although I'm sure Austin still has quite a bit to say. I say that. This is 23 episodes. The first season was, of course, a half season. What was it, like 12? And
13.
13. I've already forgotten. And so obviously there's more material to cover, but there's not as much background material to cover because we spent a lot, probably the first hour of the last show, just talking about the inception of The Simpsons and how it got started, and a lot of behind the scenes, factoids and turmoil and stuff. And also a lot of our analysis was just about the initial ideas of the character and the premise of the show and that kind of stuff. So we'll continue some of that tonight, of course, but I think we're going to be talking a lot more about the overall meat of the season. So The Simpsons is a thing that, as we talked about last time, doesn't have a real concrete continuity. You've got a lot of stuff that sort of informs later episodes, but characters don't always seem to remember things that happened in previous episodes and things like that. Austin reminded me of a thing that I said after, because I watched this twice. After the first time I saw it, that I had forgotten I said that I want to get up front in case I forget about again, because I agree with my old self about this, Austin, and that is that...
Well, that's one thing, too, is we finished the season the first time 4 days after we did that first video.
We could have gone ahead and done it right then, but
pushed back, yeah.
I wanted to take some notes and because I watched that more casually, and I wanted to get
like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier stuff came up, so it just kind of got pushed back. But yeah.
But it was, but I think it was smart to spend some more time with it and all of that, and also just spacing these out a little bit I think is smart because it gives everybody else time to go back and watch them if they want to do that. But anyway, so I suggested to Austin 4 days after the first show, as he said, that this season is, to me, and I wonder if other seasons will be like this, a lot like a music album, like a really good rock record where it's going through, it's using a lot of like the same ideas, and it has an overall kind of mood and flavor, but it's not, of course, an ongoing serialized narrative. It's riffing on a lot of the same kind of beats and notes and concepts, and sort of like an REM record, it's got like 3 or 4 different modes that it keeps going through for each of its episodes or each of its songs.
Well, yeah, and I actually have a test for you next time with that, because there is one holdover episode from this season that gets pushed onto next season. So I want to see if you can guess which one it is when we get there.
Just based on the vibe of this.
Yeah, just to see if you can tell that it doesn't fit into the vibe of that season.
So, Austin, obviously you know the show better than I do. That's a lot of the reason that we're doing this. I'm trying to become a mega fan of The Simpsons through Austin. Austin has seen this season a million times, and four, I think, in just this year. Is that what you told me?
Yeah, because like earlier in the or yeah, like not like in 2021, but in the last like year kind of period. Because earlier last year I was going through the show again, and then maybe like a few months ago I was like, I'm really in the mood for season two because, like you said, season two just has a feeling to it. And I was like, I really want to watch that again. So I rewatched that, and then I watched it twice for this video. So I'm feeling super prepared.
When I think of The Simpsons, you know, the classic stuff, and obviously I've seen a lot of this show over my life. We talked about this last time, but never in order. I've never sat through a whole season in order of this. Now I've done it with the first and the second, and so I know about some things that are coming, but I like the order in which events happen. I just don't know, and so. When I think of this show, I think of yeah. Sometimes there's heart to episodes. Sometimes it's telling something more like a traditional narrative. But I tend to think more about social commentary and timely gags. And this season is heavy social commentary with a lot of episodes that really do unfold more or less like a traditional narrative. It's still more of a sitcom than I feel like it will be later, and it's really, really subtle when it goes to those pop culture kinds of places. And I'm finding this is the show I wish it always was forevermore, and I'm really concerned that that only the second season of the show will ultimately be my favorite. I will be really surprised if anything beats this out for me because I know this is not exactly what the show is later, and it's even in the classic seasons, and this is the show I wish it always was.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. No, that'll be really interesting to see how it goes moving forward. Yeah. Because like you said, we're not so much talking about things that were happening then in terms of pop culture. It's more of just like let's reference like classic stuff like Citizen Kane and like Gone with the Wind and stuff
Gone
like
with the
that.
Wind over and over again. Psycho is in there.
Psycho, of course, yeah. Yeah, no, where it's more so that like everybody just kind of loves as opposed to things that were happening in the moment. The most you get was like there's the Wonder Years parody in the last episode of the season.
How much do you think The Simpsons, maybe this is an obvious question, but how much do you think this show later on is influenced by and even feeling like it has to compete with South Park?
Um, I've never really thought about that, yeah, but I'm sure there's probably quite a bit of that because I think you even see that with Family Guy, and that's like an obvious step down compared to The Simpsons.
Because South Park is all about the timely humor, and that show is I don't know if you
Hmm.
know anything about the production of that show, but that show is made within a couple of days at the end of a week so that it can be topically dealing with whatever happened in that week, and it got hugely popular and famous just like The Simpsons did, and I wonder if that hadn't happened in this if The Simpsons would have gone on that same trajectory as much as it did.
Maybe, yeah, because there is like a lot of just classical stuff they go to a lot. Like again, you see a lot of season Citizen Kane moving forward, because that's obviously a big influence for Mr. Burns as a character, and like you still see them looking more so at that, but they kind of broaden out more where you'll get more like season five, I think it is, has quite a few Friday the 13th parodies, and like that's not exactly topical at that point, but they're still moving forward as opposed to doing mostly older stuff.
But once we get past the classic period, I think you have very often something. I mean, it's not exactly Family Guy. It's not South Park, but you get more of those kinds of gags where okay, 2 months from now, this is not going to be funny, or people are not going to remember that this happened, right? Like those gags will
Hmm.
be in the show, and I think in season two, especially, they're really concerned about getting about seeming dated.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. Well, and we talked a little bit with season one about the Bigfoot episode where we were saying that that seems to be more of like a thing back then and it doesn't hold up as well. So I wonder if maybe like after that they were wondering like or thinking that they should be a bit more timeless. Because yeah, you get a lot more references to older things. But like you said, there's so much more social commentary in this season, like a lot more.
In the previous season, there are obviously jabs at things, and there's like I would say, first season has a bunch of satiring moments, but this season is like straight up social commentary. Obviously, it's a satirical show, but it will spend a whole episode exploring an idea as opposed to just presenting it in the first place and then riffing around it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And we're dealing a lot more with like politics and stuff like that. Because one of the big things I'd say with this season, and I don't know if you remember this, because a while ago we did a watch party of the first nine or so Treehouse of Horrors,
Yeah.
and we did the first one from this season. The big thing you said was that it like oozes confidence, and I think the season overall has that feeling.
It feels like a show that has already been on 4 or 5 years, and I was surprised by how well it found itself in the first season,
Hmm.
particularly with all the characters that I would have expected didn't show up until later. Some of the supporting characters and kind of background, off the beaten path kind of characters, people in the background, some of the people that you see on the screen right now, but. Um, but obviously, we talked about how the animation was very often kind of shoddy, and like episode to episode, you could see them kind of playing around with pacing and stuff. And this season, right out the gate, with that first episode, Bart gets an F. If I wasn't doing this show, I could not have told you what season that was in. It could have been two, it could have been six, at least from my perspective. I mean, knowing the show as well as you do, you could probably point out some things where you're like, well, here's why this had to be an early episode. But me being, not knowing the show as well and being more of a novice fan, I guess, if that makes any sense. I would several episodes in this season, maybe all of them, I could not have begun to tell you like where exactly they fall, and it feels like it's been on forever.
Yeah, yeah, no, Bart gets an F immediately hits it off into just what the show will be moving forward. Because there's some rough edges to season one. Obviously, it's still pretty good, but just immediately with this season, we're cutting all the fat, and it's amazing like how well they were able to do that so quickly.
I was making a lot of Star Trek references in that first show, so I'll do that again real quick with this and say that Simpsons season 2 is to me what TNG season 3 is. It took them 3 years to find what that show would be moving forward, but pretty early in that third season, it's like, okay, you figured it out. You found what everybody knows you for and what you're going to be. This does that by the 14th episode, which is wild.
Yeah, well, and it's kind of funny when you think about it because this is the last season for the original showrunners, Matt Groening, James L. Brooks, and Sam Simon. So they're like, boom, there's the show, and then they hand it off. Because well, in the first little while, we'll only get like a showrunner for 2 seasons, and then keep moving forward. Um, but it's just interesting that they were able to like nail it down, and then just immediately handed it off to like the next group.
Yeah, and it keeps a degree of quality. Well, I
Hmm.
shouldn't say degree; it keeps its quality. And probably part of the reason it stayed popular is because whenever that handoff would happen, you'd have new voices that would bring, new things to the table, so that it didn't get stale, but it still stayed sharp-witted and topical and keeping that social satire going. But because of that, I think different writers maybe had, or different sets of writers maybe had a different like interpretation of these characters. And this season, everybody for the most part is what I want them to be moving forward. We talked about first season how Bart was Bart right out the gate, and he hardly ever changes, and they know. This season we have a better sense of why he is who he is, but he's always that character. Now we're just getting under the hood a little bit and deconstructing. And it's weird because it feels like we're deconstructing something that's been on forever, because the show was so popular already that already they're going in and going, how does all of this tick? This thing you've been watching for 9 months. I mean, it's crazy. But then you have characters like Marge, who is not exactly what she is in this season very often moving forward, and this is what she always should have been. And it's a bummer knowing that she loses some of her kind of confidence and the kind of counterculture thing she has going on this season.
Yeah, yeah, no, this is
She's
maybe the
pushing
best
against the
season
man
for
as much as
Marge.
anybody this season. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, no, this is maybe the best season for Marge. I mean, obviously we'll see when we go through it more. But yeah, as Lisa gets like smarter and more socially conscious, I guess, that role from Marge kind of shifts over to her. And it's definitely like a bit of a shame for her as a character.
Do you think part of the difficulty with that is it's tell me if I'm right about this because I just had this thought. So I'm going to say it out loud and see if it's dumb. Uh, I think it's maybe, or maybe this is what the writers were thinking, it's maybe easier to see the way that Homer influences Bart as a father without Bart turning into Homer. In a way, it's not as easy to have that with Marge and Lisa without them being clone characters of each other.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. Well, when I was driving home from work today, I kind of had the thought that because we have our first flashback episode with the way we was, where we get to see Homer and Marge in high school, and like Homer is kind of like the dropout, kind of like loser type character, like what Bart kind of is, while Lisa's the more like protesty, like it was like what we said with season one, where Bart's more of like a thug, while Lisa is more organized in her rage against the machine, if you will. And it's interesting when you go back, you kind of see it like that, like you said, where Bart is more of his father and Lisa's more of her mother. Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense because we deal a lot this season with how Homer is not just a screw up, but he's an underachiever, and that's exactly what Bart is. He but he's not the lunkhead, he's not an idiot. And honestly, this is just my personal interpretation, I don't know for sure that Homer is either. I think he's fallen into that place, and after decades of being that way, now he is that way, you know. It's kind of like fake it till you make it backwards, like the bad way, if that is indeed what it is. Like when you, or at least that would have been my interpretation if we didn't have the way we was. Let me mention that because he does definitely still have that even in high school. But before that, because I wasn't thinking about it, before that, I would have said that, well, I don't know, maybe Homer was just so much of an underachiever that he's made everybody think that he's an idiot, and he's just fallen into that. Bart has every potential to wind up in that place too, but like he's actually played as a, with Bart gets an F especially, a bright kid who learns differently. And that episode, in my mind, is all about how the public school system fails us,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
how
Yeah.
different people do learn differently. And if they don't get focused one-on-one attention, you won't realize the actual nuanced reasons that they're having difficulty in class.
hmm Yeah, no, absolutely. And like I said, it's interesting for this season that we're really getting into that because, like, we immediately had Bart Mania when the show started, and they could have easily rested on their laurels with that and made him you're kind of like Urkel, like sitcom character, where like he comes in and he does the catchphrase and we all laugh. And in like 3 seasons from now, we'll get like an episode where we make fun of that idea with Bart, and it's fascinating to me how they didn't, and they were like, no, let's push this character forward and actually do something with him, because we even get like Bart versus Thanksgiving, where the end of that episode is him like contemplating why he does the things that he does.
Yeah, he comes right out and says that.
hmm Yeah, yeah, exactly.
It is astounding to me in general because, of course, that would have ruined the show, at least, or at least it would have made it a lot less like sharp and original and new. Because if you go back and look at that first season after knowing about Bart Mania, he actually looks more that way before he was popular, or before they knew he was going to be. And I mean, he doesn't have like the catchphrase all the time, but he's not as three dimensional as he'll be here. And then you get into this season, and he's a lot more sympathetic because now I know why he's acting that way. And there are several episodes where the Bart being mischievous and rebellious episode is all about how like he's pushing back against adults that like don't get him or aren't, and especially with the case of Homer, and we talked about this with the first season some about people who aren't giving him like the role model that he needs, and so of course he's pushing back, and he doesn't get who he is because nobody's paying attention to him, nobody cares.
Hmm. Yeah, which also ties into Lisa as a character too.
There's so much believability in where those two come from, and it's amazing how we land on this balance between making them feel like more or less real people wrapped up in a cartoon character, while simultaneously making them really entertaining and funny. We're able to do all of that at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this season does a much better job at being funny while also exploring the ideas it wants to explore. Because we talked about Moaning Lisa last season, which is my favorite episode of that season. I think it's really great,
Me too.
but it's a lot more solemn. While here we kind of get our Moaning Lisa with Lisa Substitute, and I think they do a much better job of balancing the humor and telling like a really good story with Lisa.
Yeah, because by comparison, that Moaning Lisa episode ends up watching, and I love that episode, but it ends up watching more like a special episode of The Simpsons. And that episode, Lisa Substitute, has those scenes, and you could even say that like the last 10, 12 minutes kind of, well, no, that would be half the show. I guess the last 5 or 6 minutes sort of feel that way, but there's still comedy even there. Like some of the funniest stuff in the season is in that episode that's also one of the most poignant and one of the most like tear jerky, and I think I could say that about any of the episodes that I put on runners up for the category that we've got about most heartwarming moments. Like they're all really funny, like none of them are okay, it's not that sitcom thing of we're gonna interrupt the funny stuff now to give you an episode where everybody's crying. Like The Simpsons, of course, doesn't do that. And if it did, it would be like when Itchy and Scratchy, because of Marge, has to turn into just like palling around guys. I almost want to see that episode where like The Simpsons does the episode where somebody complained that the show is like too raunchy or it's not enough for kids, and so I don't know if they ever did anything like that, but it'd be really great if you had a whole episode that was just like the distilled, like watered down Simpsons, like what it would be if they listened to the censors or if they listened to the parents.
Oh yeah, that would be funny. Yeah, yeah. I want the Porch Pals Simpsons.
The thing I most can't get my mind around this season is how it got as popular as it did, and that seems to have made it better.
Sorry for wow. What's that? Sorry, I was reading the comment.
Oh no, that's okay. At how I just changed the subject and gave you a whole new thing to think about. I couldn't believe how the season or how the series gets as popular as it does, and that somehow actually makes it better. Instead of they're like drinking their own Kool-Aid or realizing they have an audience and now we have to give them what they want, like you said with the Bart Mania thing.
Yeah.
It's better in every way, and it's it's funnier, but it's also more dramatic, and it's constantly subverting expectations and like surprising you with directions that it's willing to go, both in subject matter and the way the drama goes. Like Lisa's Substitute is really impressive, for instance, because you think that episode is all about Lisa having a school crush. Having a teacher crush. And at the end of that episode, that's not what it's about. It takes this turn. You realize that's where it was headed all along, and it's astounding.
Yeah. Well, and that has, I think, one of the like most effective lines like in the show, which is where her substitute teacher says, "What is it like? That's the issue with being middle class. Anybody that's willing to help like has to leave you to help those who have less."
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
It's really powerful,
and it's like
for a
mind blown
sitcom. Yeah.
Well, and also that's one of those. It's profound. Like it's legitimately profound, because that's a thought that you hear and you go, well, that's obvious, but I've never thought about it like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, and that's the entire issue with the substitute teacher, yeah, like you said.
It's amazing how well this season holds up, and it's not just because they're not doing too much topical humor. Like when I say that, I mean we're obviously referencing some like people that are around then that if you didn't grow up in that time you might not know. But I just mean we don't make whole episodes about it. You don't have to know everything about 1990 to like appreciate the like the overall ideas and the reason that I say it feels timeless is because of the social commentary stuff. Is because like all of the topics that were dealing with episode to episode, politics, religion, education, is all stuff that is still obviously an issue and matters, and like it had a lot of things to say that still really matter. And I don't know, just so far this is the season I want to show people that don't like the show, that like don't get what it is. Like my wife doesn't care for The Simpsons. This as a thing, like this season, because like I said, it really does feel of a piece. Like this season is a piece of art all by itself, and the quality is so is so surprisingly consistent. It made it impossible to choose favorite and least favorite.
Yeah, well, we were talking about it last time about because I've been ranking the episodes as we go, and just immediately with this season, it felt arbitrary because there's just it's so consistent. Like it was really hard to be like, well, this episode's clearly better because it's not. Like it's there's just a consistent line for the most
And
part.
it's also one of the things that makes the episodes run together for me a little bit, because it isn't that they're unmemorable, it's that it's so of a piece to me that I can't there are a lot of scenes where I'm like I don't remember what episode that was in, because it stands really well on its own, but as a part of this greater whole.
Hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And like one of the big things that we get with this season that we're gonna lose pretty quickly is just we stick with a plot. Like moving forward, you're gonna get stuff like I mean, obviously the show gets famous for having the first act that doesn't really have anything to do with the rest of the show. Where we're like we'll start with one plot and then immediately shift into what the episode's actually about. While here we're much more likely to just stick with the idea that we have, and you don't really get anything outside of that until Three Men in a Comic Book, which feels more like a later episode because we're kind of bouncing around a lot more.
That's fair, but that's still really cohesive, right? Like
Oh no, no, I don't mean that in like a negative way. I just mean like we're jumping around more than we do normally this season.
because it's not the brave and the bold thing where you open with a scene that has like absolutely nothing to do with the rest of the episode. Like I think there's a lot of episodes this season that start in a place, and this is a thing I remember from The Simpsons. But you're right. I guess it does it more later. I wasn't even thinking about that. But like I was noticing that this still had that thing where it would start in one place and you realize that like the whole thing is a piece and it's a cohesive story, but it doesn't go the direction you expected it to. We would establish we'd start with something like, for instance, the episode where Burns and Homer go see a baseball game, and then that leads to now Homer's a mascot. Like that's not where I thought that was going at all. I thought that was going to be
Yeah, no, for
another
sure.
like is Homer going to get fired, or is Burns going to like make him the big wig at the plant again, that kind of thing. Like you figured, especially because you've already had some Burns episodes, you thought that would be another big Burns episode, and it's not.
Well, that's something we definitely have to talk about is that
I can't remember how much more we do with Burns after that in that episode, because again things are kind of mixing together for me right now. But like,
I think that's it for him in that
but isn't
episode,
that just like they pal around together at the ball game, and Burns
which is
thinks
amazing.
Homer expects that they won't be able to stand each other, and then they love each other, and it looks like like by the end of that it's like get a room, Homer and Burns, right? And they're like oh, I think we should refill our drinky booze, and it's amazing. I love that scene.
Yeah, one of the things I think about every now and then with the show is them when they're like hanging out together, and Mr. Burns goes, "Ready for another wave?" And they both are just going,
It's just the two
"Ah,
of them.
ah, ah!" It's just the two of them.
And it starts with that. What I love about that is that we never, everything's always in character. We never get away from what a character's supposed to be at their core in order to take them into these relationships in different places that you don't expect would make sense for them to go. So it starts with Homer and Burns both trying to one up each other with insulting players on the field. Like whenever Burns makes a friend, it always starts with negativity. Which
Oh
is
yeah.
also true of Marge's sisters, but that's a whole other thing.
Wix, that's a big thing. You can't talk
Oh,
about
we
this
love
season
we hate
without,
the same things.
yeah, where they're having the dinner and there's like just disasters happening in the background while they're talking. It's
It's not,
great, yeah.
it's not as bad as that revolving restaurant. Oh, I think I'm in love.
But that's a big thing that you can't really talk about season two without mentioning is how much the season loves Mr. Burns.
Yep.
Because he is a major character in like most of the episodes, and in the ones where he's not, he's at least a cameo.
There are maybe two or three that he doesn't appear in, but I think he shows up in most of them, and then at least four or five he's like really prominently featured.
Yeah. Yeah, there's at least, yeah, about 4 or 5 episodes, I'd say, where he's a major part of the plot.
And he never gets a straight up spotlight episode where the episode is actually about Burns because this season we stay with the family for the most part, and we rarely will run off and let the character arc be about somebody else. That kind of happens with Selma, with Marge's sister.
Yeah, you get one for her and one for Grandpa.
Yeah, yeah, that is more about Grandpa than it is anybody else. Although even with that, I think Homer kind of has like a sort of a thing to
That
learn.
is true. Yeah. I feel like it starts out more as a Grandpa episode, and then kind of turns into a Homer and Grandpa episode. But I think with Mr. Burns, he doesn't get like a proper spotlight episode. But in the episode where he runs for governor, one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish, um,
No,
or no, that's not it. I'm
you just
combining.
said the thing it was referencing.
No, there's two fish titles. I said the thing that the other fish episode was referencing.
I think this still was though, because it's still the Dr. Seuss book.
No, it's what is it? Like one car in every garage, three eyes on every fish, I think is the one I'm talking about.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, no, there's two fish episodes this season. Uh,
Oh, those are different episodes. Oh, because the one is the sushi episode, and the okay.
yeah, because it's the only
Three
I
eyes
think
in
the
every.
only
Okay.
episode where Blinky is like a major character and he was all over the merchandise.
And this has two of those because this also starts Bartman, and it ended up doing that whole thing. And Bartman's not. And we talked about this last time, but I thought Bartman was all over the show, and it turns out he's not. And there's like one episode way later where we do sort of a treehouse thing. I went back and watched it. We do sort of a treehouse thing, and it's not very good, by the way. Where there's like three vignettes, and one of them is Bartman Begins. That's how late it is. It's past Batman Begins, and yeah, they should have left that alone. It's not great. But...
Yeah, every now and then you get that kind of Treehouse of Horror setup with like just outside of Halloween,
with other
with
kinds
like a
of
different.
films or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. What was I gonna say? Oh, yeah, about that episode though. I feel like it starts out as more of like a Mr. Burns spotlight episode, because we're following him as his like the plan is being investigated, and then he decides to run for governor, which is maybe the only time we ever see Mr. Burns like deeply upset and crying. It's really strange, but it's very effective. And
And I just didn't realize we don't do that very much with him because that was one I think I had seen quite a bit when I was a kid, and so I just think of that as a thing he does occasionally, but I guess not.
oh yeah, no, rewatching it, I was like, like it's weird to see him at like a moment of weakness. That's not, him struggling to crush a paper cup or something like that.
I love that. Every time he's just really weak and can't make something, it's funny every time. And the paper cup was the best one, dude. He's like, I'll crush you like a paper cup, and then it took him like 15 seconds, and then he was so like self-congratulatory when he finally crushed it. You crushed it, Mr. Burns.
Yeah, no, he and Smithers are just perfect here. Like, I know we mostly got them last season, but they didn't have a lot of screen time. But here they're all over the place, and it's just the dynamic you expect.
Can I tell you my favorite Smithers moment? Just him with a banjo. Where they're trying to buy a present for the Simpsons after Bart saves Burns' life with his blood, and then they're looking all over the mall, and there's a part where Smithers picks up a banjo, and then Burns, and he's just got this stupid grin, and then Burns is like, too corny, and I was like, I don't know if you ever see that look on his face again, but he's a really expressive character, surprisingly.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But yeah, somebody in the comments, Busted Sim, was trying to remember who voiced the substitute, and then he was like, and then he said it sounded like Dustin Hoffman. Oh wait, it is Dustin Hoffman.
It is Sam Eddick.
Yes. This goes to that place that we were talking about in the last video, where gradually it would get to where it will just put celebrities everywhere, but this season they're still trying not to do too much of that. So you have celebrity voices, but they tend to voice people like new characters, like with that, and he's one of the best guest characters, of course. But then you do finally get a couple of appearances by celebrities being themselves, but they don't actually interact with any of our characters.
Yeah, I think that's important because early on, and I think we lose this like next season, but they wanted the celebrities to not interact with the family or be in Springfield. So we're still keeping to that, even if we have like Ringo Starr playing himself and Larry King playing himself.
And I read that they only got Ringo because one of the writers just wanted to meet a Beatle.
Yep. Yeah, and they had like a whole thing where they're like, okay, when he shows up here to voice his role, we can't ask him for an autograph. But I think it was the writer, like wasn't there when they decided that. So the second Ringo showed up, he like pulled out a poster and he was like, "Can I get your autograph, Mr. Starr?"
He's like, yeah, he's like, I wrote you a letter 20 years ago. Could you finally respond to my letter?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it's funny with that too because like he had that whole thing where he just wanted to meet a Beatle, and then the second Ringo said yes, they're like, okay, we need to expand his role.
Busted Sim says, back when celebrities got actual characters to voice besides themselves, but then, pardon me, there's the rare times where celebrities will voice themselves and a character.
Oh yeah.
Will that ever happen like in the same episode?
I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I'm sure that probably happens somewhere, but nothing's coming to mind.
How many, I wonder, I'm not saying you'll know the number, but how many like recurring voices, I wonder, are done by like celebrities, or not recurring, but like how many recurring celebrities come in and will voice multiple parts but aren't part of the main cast? Because like Phil Hartman has that, and I think John Lovitz has that.
Yeah, he comes in now and then. Joe Mantegna, I think his name is, Fat Tony. He comes in pretty often. Obviously, Kelsey Grammer.
I think Lovitz might be in 2 episodes of the season as different characters. I know he's in
Yes, he is.
The Way We Was, because he is Marge's prom date that goes wrong in that. But I think he's somebody else, and I can't remember who.
Yes, he is Marge's art teacher in the episode where she's in the Ringo Starr episode.
Yeah, the Ringo Starr. That's right.
Yeah, he's the art teacher that loves everything.
The best part in that whole episode is when he when he's like going down and critiquing, or he's not even critiquing, he's just everything is great with like all these paintings, and then he walks into the hall and somebody's just making a sign with letters. He's another masterpiece.
I like when he's like, "Oh, not another stroke. Oh, one more. Perfect. Don't touch it."
Let me mention real quick
It's
before I
great.
forget. We're already 40 minutes into the show, and I didn't say this at the beginning, but we do, of course, have a poll like we did last time. We're going to do this every episode. At the end of the show tonight, we're going to do a commentary on one of the episodes from this season, and we've had about 30 something, 32, 33 votes. If you've not voted and you'd like to, you can. Let me pull
I
up.
probably best put it in the chat.
Let
Yeah,
me put it in the chat again.
'cause I think
Yeah,
it's tied right now. Yeah.
because we do have a tie at the moment, and so we need somebody to break this tie for us. Should I mention what it's a tie between so that people can break that tie if they want to, or should we not even do that?
It's up to
We
you.
could just flip a coin or something, I guess.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks, give me just a second. I gotta find where the link is. Here it is. Okay, so this is the poll for all the episodes from this season, where you can vote and help us decide which one we're going to talk about, or we're gonna do the commentary on. Excuse me. We'll do that after we go down our list of categories. We'll talk a little bit more generally about the season for a few minutes before we do that, because I'm sure Austin has many more insights to regale us with. But it is tied between a couple of episodes right now. I'm not going to tell you what they are. If you've not voted yet, go ahead and go in and vote. And if it is still a tie at the end, we will flip a coin or something.
I'll just say one of them. You can probably guess what it is.
Yeah. Well, I say that, but one of the ones that got beat out, I actually was pretty sure would win. So
Yeah, Cap and I had like a little kind of bet, I guess, where we both had the one episode where we thought would win. So it'll be interesting to see which one of us wins or if we both lose.
I actually just thought of a really funny way instead of a coin in order to pick that. So now I hope it is a tie because I'm totally gonna do that. Anyway, Busted Sim, I commented about not knowing what to choose, then abstained. I suppose I could vote. Philip, I tried to give a super chat, but it didn't go through. I'm not sure why. Weird. Yeah,
Oh, that is weird.
that's never happened. Strange. Okay. Well, hopefully there's not a problem with that whole thing, but I'm doing another show tomorrow night, so I'll check it and make sure that super chats are still coming through. Anyway, what else do you want to chat about with this season before we get into our categories, Austin?
Um, I'm trying to think if is there anything that you have just off the top of your head?
Um, well, I mean, I'm thinking, I guess, of other celebrities that came in and voiced people that weren't themselves. We also got a really great Danny DeVito episode, which
Oh, yes.
I remembered from when I was a kid. And I hadn't seen that one in a really long time. That was one of my favorite episodes this season. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's really good. And we get a sequel episode with him next season, and then he never shows up again. And I've always wondered why he never came back. But I guess they didn't have anything to do with him.
One of the things that made this feel like an album, like I said earlier, is like I said, the ways in which it would like establish an idea and then come back later and riff on it, but it doesn't do direct sequels to things. It won't be like, okay, here is an event that we remember that happened, and it doesn't even do that from the previous season. We don't have a Sideshow Bob episode this season. I was actually surprised by some of the characters that don't get like majorly featured in an episode this season, like Krusty. I really expected a Krusty episode. There's not one. There's Krusty stuff, but like he's not majorly featured. That voice hardly shows up.
Which is interesting because you get quite a few sequel episodes next season.
Interesting.
So I guess, yeah, because that's where we're gonna get another Krusty episode, another Sideshow Bob.
But we will echo things in, like I said, ideas and even episode titles. I was kind of shocked by Bart gets an F and then Bart's dog gets an F, and just some of the parallels between those things. Interestingly, even in how the endings are kind of easy. Although
Yeah.
I don't think, because you and I talked about this, and you said that Bart gets an F has maybe too easy of an ending.
Oh,
But
I think I was talking about Bart's dog gets an F.
oh, okay. You could make the argument that both of them have that. I think Bart's dog gets an F has it a lot more because I don't know what. I mean, I get that he's a dog, okay, but I don't
Yeah, I
really
think
know
it's
what the
also that
opportunity for
episode.
change was there. We're like the whole episode, he just is a screw up dog, and he's impossible to train, and and no matter what the stakes are, because he's about to get. You're about to lose him. They're about to have to give him the pound or whatever. And no matter what the
They're
stakes
gonna
are,
sell him, yeah.
this dog is oh they are gonna sell, they're gonna sell him to like the worst possible person, but like he's not gonna listen, he's not gonna obey, and then at the end finally just because Bart's sad he starts listening, and it's weird because I think it would work better if we never got into his head, if we didn't do the silly dog POV thing where when people talk it's just nah 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 nah. I what I do like about that is that it echoes when we did that with Bart and teachers. Whenever adults talk in Bart Gets an F, it's the same thing with the dog leader when people are talking. But I don't get the sense that that's supposed to be because he's not paying attention like with Bart. I thought it was just because he was a dog and he didn't understand what people were saying. And then suddenly, because it's important, he recognizes the one word that's a command. And I'm like, that's easy. With Bart Gets an F, it's that he suddenly when he's so distraught in a really wonderful and powerful scene that he is going to have to repeat the fourth grade with when Miss Krabappel gives him a D minus and or gives him an F, pardon me. He's all distraught, and then suddenly he uses an analogy about Washington or something because it was a history test, and she's like, "Oh, you were able to use applied knowledge. I'm going to give you an extra point." That pops it up. That wasn't as easy to me because it was all, like I said, I thought it was all about how he learns differently and he doesn't realize that he actually is picking up on things and committing things to memory. That whole
Yeah,
scene completely worked for me, like hook, line, and sinker. And maybe it was like I don't know, maybe it was somebody else I talked to or something that suggested that, but like or I don't know, I watched a video that somebody made on season 2, maybe that's what I'm thinking of, where he was saying it was too easy. I don't know. Anybody that thinks that, I don't agree with that. I think that scene completely works.
yeah, because I did say that about Bart's dog gets an F, but I like the ending to Bart gets an F quite a bit, and I think it says a lot about Mrs. Krabappel that she cares enough that she was willing to give him that extra point for his applied knowledge.
Oh, I want to thank you and Tom for trying to make the super chats work. Austin just put in $2 Canadian in the show that he is in, which is probably a first. I don't think
I was
anybody
gonna
has
say,
ever put in
I
a
think
super
I
chat
made, yeah.
while they were in a show. So thanks for testing that. But Tom said that he had to try 4 times and got an error message, and finally he was able to put one in. So I don't know what that's about.
Weird, yeah, I was able to do it right away.
And he tried a couple times and got 2 of them in. So thanks, Tom. He wrote test tasty donuts. Herb is the best. Yeah, I love it. Unky Herb.
Yeah. Well, and what I like about Herb is that he has what Homer wants, but he wants what Homer has, and Homer has the opposite. Like they both have what the other one wants, and I think it's really interesting.
And then at the end, Homer screws up his life, and he doesn't even have what Homer wants anymore.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And he'll be a homeless person next season when we see him.
So, first of all, how do you feel about direct sequel episodes like that when there's so much stuff? Like, do you worry at all about the continuity of this, or do you not really care? Because I think we kind of play both sides of it, and I can't decide how I feel about it. We're like, we do. It's like we do both things. It's like we do the Powerpuff Girls and the Dexter's Laboratory things simultaneously. Dexter's Laboratory, you can get to the end of an episode and the whole world can explode, and then next episode that never happened. But Powerpuff Girls remembers everything that happened episode to episode. This show has some combination of that, where like Burns and Homer never remember the last time that they had issues in a tiff and stuff, and they can have a really similar situation and it can go a completely different direction. But then you can also have, well, Sideshow Bob comes back and he remembers going to prison and Bart making that happen and all of that, and you can have like Unky Herb come back and he's homeless now. Does that bug you, or do you not have a problem with it?
No, I don't really have a problem with that. I think too with the Mr. Burns situation, I think it definitely helps that that ends up being a big part of Who Shot Mr. Burns,
Oh,
because that ends up being a big part of
it's just been
Homer's
so
motivation.
long since I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, a big part of that is that Mr. Burns remembers everyone else in the Simpsons family except Homer. And like the big ending of that is he puts a gun to Mr. Burns' head and he's like, "Say my name."
That's great, but I feel like Homer himself doesn't always remember the last time they had an issue.
Yeah, no, the continuity is definitely loose. I mean, Bart graduates here at the end of the first episode, and then in season 4 he's gonna graduate again. Like,
Well, that's a good point. He's going to be in the fourth grade because it's not like he's suddenly going to get a new teacher next time. And somebody just said that like they care about continuity, and Buzz is saying they care about continuity until season 9. But again, really loosely though, like they do when they don't.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It is much more of a we. It depends on what it is. There's certain things that they will always keep, like we have the way we was this time, and for the next few seasons until season 7, we will keep moving forward with different flashback episodes, and like that all tracks from what I remember, and like Homer and Marge's prom is always themed as Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, even where we're at a point where that doesn't really make sense anymore.
That's great. And another thing we do is we'll have a lot, and I love this. We'll have a lot of visual references to things that happened in early episodes that people just aren't really talking about.
Mhm.
Like, because I know later on we'll keep like bringing the head back in the background, like the like Olmec head or whatever.
Yeah, it's in the basement. Yeah, it'll just be in the background of it, like a scene.
But like this season has stuff like that. With like the I wrote this one down. The evil babysitter. She's referenced like 2 or 3 times.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, and she never comes back. You get references here and there, but they never bring that character back, which I'm sure makes you happy.
That's for the best. Yeah, because that just freaked me out. We forgot to do disturbing moment last time. We totally skipped over it. And
Did
that
we?
would
Yeah.
have been mine, but we didn't actually I think early on we were like, "There's disturbing stuff," but when we did our actual categories, we didn't actually break it down. So I don't know what
Oh,
yours was
yeah.
for the first season, but
It was just that, but it was more like arbitrary. Like, I have nothing else to really put here.
do you want to talk a little bit about characters that they're still kind of hanging on to from that first season
Marvin Monroe?
that they won't do a lot with it? Yeah, that's the big one I was thinking of.
Yeah, well, and they only drop him because Harry Shearer like heard his voice to do that. So they drop him like pretty quick because he complains to the writers, I think.
Interesting they didn't just recast him
Yeah, that is true.
because
We also get like the Winfields, like the elderly couple across the street.
oh yeah.
There are a few season 1 like hangovers that are still here.
My favorite Monroe thing, and yeah, I get like that character might have clicked more as he continued on. Like it does feel like a thing they dropped because it just wasn't working, and it's interesting that that's not what was going on. I wonder what he would have been like if they kept using him. But that character. It has if you a couple times when he shows up I think it kind of falls flat and it's kind of whatever but the funniest place where he shows up is Marge and Itchy and Scratchy or whatever that episode's called where she goes on the panel show and they don't. I love this because this is so TV news. That episode, by the way, is brilliant in how it's scathing about not just like TV violence in cartoons and how people feel about it and all of that and how that's an unanswerable question. I love how we deal with both sides of that whole thing while simultaneously it is really, really critical of TV, but it's also really critical of the people not realizing that you cannot be consistent about that. It's brilliant. In some ways it might be the best episode of the season. I didn't write it down as my favorite, but like that's genius. But it's also really scathing about other parts of TV. I love how when she's on that panel show, we get to the end of that, and Brockman's like, he gives her 8 seconds to give her entire argument, and that's it. Nobody let her talk the whole time. But that's the best bit with Monroe, where he's like, where he's talking about how like it's fun to see characters in a cartoon eviscerating each other, and like, what the hell's wrong with that? It's great. I love that.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Yeah, no, I like that the show doesn't act like it has an answer for that issue, especially because you did have people complaining that they were going too far with the show. Like, it's amazing that they didn't just take that and go like, let's bash these people. Like,
Yeah.
this is what you think about us? Well, this is what we think about you. Like, no, they really look at both sides of that issue.
And I don't know, it's classy because like they do what you would have expected them to do with somebody else maybe, but like in the Itchy and Scratchy cartoon where they take Marge and she gets her head cut off. And then
Don't
later
do that.
but then like Marge really has a point, and she like accidentally is successful in getting kids to stop watching TV and go play outside. Like, I think one of the best moments in the whole season is just the sheer amount of time we spend showing every child in Springfield outside doing something. It goes on forever. It's fantastic. And so like, there's kind of a point there, because not only are kids just in general maybe spending too much time watching television and they're being pacified in that way, and it's a fun irony in the satire of a TV show telling you why TV is bad, but also it's pretty legit with the Maggie thing, where like, yeah, that kind of thing does happen. Like, she sees something in TV and she's a toddler and she doesn't know better, and she picks up a mallet and starts hitting people with it. I love that that's a baby, because once kids reach a certain cognitive level and they develop empathy, it's a lot less likely for that kind of thing to happen willy-nilly, but like, the government very often tends to treat, or the government, certain senators and people that have always like tried to blame violent video games for everything and stuff like that, we act like every child is a toddler. Yeah. Where like, if they see violence, they're going to do violence. I love that that's a baby, but still, do you want to instill that in them that young? That's a question. And then when you get to the end and she's like, well, I don't have a problem with the Statue of David, even though it's naked. Like, you have to take everything case by case, and her friends are all, well, like, you're not being consistent. You're supposed to, fight for you don't want your kids to see nudity, right? Well, yeah, but this is different. It's so nuanced. It's quite brilliant.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that the censorship, or maybe not censorship, but like kids being influenced by TV also carries over into, or maybe it was there for, I can't remember the exact order of the episodes, but Bart the Daredevil, we talk about that quite a bit there too.
One of the best lines in that is when they're in the hospital and they've got the wing of people who tried to do stuff they saw on TV.
You don't even want to see the Stooges wing.
It's hysterical.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just saw a comment from Robotters100, because I didn't think about it until he said it, but in terms of you talking about things that they're holding on to from earlier, which is the frosty chocolate milkshakes, which is always their go-to for making fun of the Tracy Ullman shorts. Because there's one where Homer goes like, "Okay, Bart, if you catch this ball, we're all going out for frosty chocolate milkshakes." And he at least says it once in the season.
I love how you going all the way back to early Simpsons with that. You sounded more like Walter Matthau. You did like a really good like Walter Matthau Homer.
Oh yeah, well I was trying to go for that. Yeah,
good job. That was
my like early Homer impression just comes from an interview with Dan Castellaneta where he just goes, You know, my original Homer voice sounded a lot like Walter Matthau.
I saw a movie with Walter Matthau the other day, and I was like, yeah, that's Walter Matthau. That's what that sounds like. Yeah, I was surprised that the frosty chocolate milkshakes thing kept coming up, and I was like, I don't know why that's funny. I don't know why they keep using that because I didn't know anything about Tracy Ullman, and I also thought it was weird that she actually voices a character this season, given what you told me about her last show.
Yeah, yeah, no, she gets a character. She's in Bart's Dog Gets an F, and she's basically Margaret Thatcher.
And she's great.
Yeah, yeah, no, she's really great in that episode. I've always thought it was a missed opportunity for one of the anniversaries not to do like live action Tracy Ullman shorts mixed into the show, but I don't think that'll ever happen now.
Well, I was gonna say that could maybe be a bridge too far, but there is a little bit of precedent.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, we've done stuff like that
only
before.
live action thing I can think of off the top of my head is my favorite Treehouse episode, because with the 3D Homer thing, we do that at the end. I'm sure it does it somewhere else, and I don't know about it, but
Yeah, there's a Katy Perry bit where all the Simpsons are puppets for like the end of an episode.
oh
It's very
really?
strange. Yeah. I remember seeing that one when it aired, yeah.
um, what episode this season do you think you've seen the most times? Like, I guess you probably didn't see this just come on TV, like I did, but the one, and again, I didn't know the order of these, so I didn't know what season stuff was. I've probably seen Bart the Daredevil like 20 times. That one came on TV constantly. Bart Gets an F, I saw quite a bit. There was another one that I think I just kept coming up. I can't remember. But which one is it for you?
It's probably both of those, but I should say with Bart the Daredevil, because I talked a little bit about how I got into the show last time.
Yeah.
Um, but my mom's roommate had this season and the next season on DVD, and I don't think I was like really a fan of the show until I watched Bart the Daredevil. That was the episode that made me go, okay, I love this show when I was a kid, and then I've never looked back.
It's weird because I maybe mentioned this last time, but I'm watching the show again now with like episodes I saw a bunch of times with totally different eyes. So I'm having that like Disney movie thing I sometimes have where like I won't watch a movie for a long time because I saw it too much growing up, and then like 15 years later I'll go back and watch it, and I'll simultaneously remember like every scene and almost every line, but I also feel like I'm seeing it for the first time simultaneously because it's got this new layer and like I'm understanding things that I didn't get that it was doing before. And I don't remember that being, I don't know if heartwarming is the right word, but like there's more character and heart to that episode than I remembered.
Yeah, well, Bart and Homer get it's basically just a scene, but it's really heartwarming at the end, um, when like Bart kind of realizes he can't keep doing what he's doing when he's talking to Homer.
And he's gonna stop, yeah. And
Yeah.
there's a number of points that season where Bart like realizes that he has compassion or heart or cares about something more than himself.
Hmm.
And we
Yeah, no,
we have
absolutely.
and we of course parallel that with Homer constantly.
Hmm. And I mean, of course, another thing you can't like not talk about with this season is it has one of the most famous scenes from the show, which is the gorge jump, and we go back to that constantly.
Yeah. We
And
should
I mean,
talk.
that whole segment's wonderful.
We should talk animation a little bit because you're right that it finds a quality and never gets away from it, but it's also like really ambitious.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think it's amazing that a show that is so writer driven too uh ends Treehouse of Horror with a very like animation driven segment.
Yeah, all the shadow work in the season is really impressive. There's a lot of really cool. I watched a video that broke some of this stuff down, and I was noticing it some too. That like all the color palettes, with like reds and blues and stuff. It's really moody. Somebody earlier in the comments said that it's overall like a really mood driven season, and I agree with that. And that's part
Mhm.
of where my album analogy comes from, because like it just there's a feeling I have when I watch I want to say any episode of the season, but like watching it all together, I'm realizing they all have it, and I don't know what it is, but they all have it.
No, there's just a feeling the season has, even if you can't really nail it down. Like it's season two, and with your colors, like yeah, Three Men in a Comic Book, the ending with the shadow work, like it looks like it's hand painted. It's beautiful.
And I love that it suddenly turns into an homage to a horror film without going to a horror place.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I think looking back on it, that episode resonated with me even more than for obvious reasons, because it goes to those geeky places. And you and I were talking earlier. You mentioned how it's the first time that it goes to all those geeky places. But I was gonna almost just started talking about that. But let me get to my point real quick. It resonated with me more on a personal level because I'm going back and I'm thinking about when this was made and the age I was when it came out. I didn't see this when it came out, but I had to keep reminding myself again because it holds up so well. Oh, this is 1991. I'm like 6, 7 years old, and when I was a kid, because I'm turning into an old person. When I was a kid, we did that like mid late 80s thing of like running around the neighborhood without supervision and doing stuff with our friends that our parents would never know about and that kind of thing. And the tree, like them being in the treehouse and like Martin getting tied up and they're taking this comic book thing like way too seriously and getting paranoid about it. It's a really funny, silly situation, and it's like homaging, I'm sure, a lot of like horror and suspense films and stories and things, but it also feels absolutely like a thing that would happen right then with children.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Like I can totally see that situation where kids would like go in together to buy a comic book and then realize, oh crap, we all own it now, and they're really greedy about it. Like the payoff with that, this season is wonderful, by the way, for actions and consequences, specifically for an object that somebody covets and then it gets destroyed and somebody's upset. That happens a lot. But yeah, it's weird how like believable that whole scenario is.
Oh yeah, for sure. That whole episode I think resonates quite a bit for me, like trying to raise money to get the comic and stuff. Even just that, yeah.
And how hard it is to get money outside of your allowance, and
Mhm.
the thing with the old lady that like only gives you 2 bits after you kill yourself like working for her, and like that's yeah, being a kid was like that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And also in like the frivolous things that seem so important at the time, then you look back and you're like, why did I want that bad?
Well, that's the one thing that always made me laugh as a kid watching this was because I was like, first issues always suck. It's just the origin. That's the one issue I don't want.
Yeah, the origin thing was weird, right? Because they read how the guy becomes Radioactive Man, and it's very weird, by the way, to see the comic panels in that, because I'm used to Radioactive Man looking like Homer, because the actual Radioactive Man comics, he's Homer. But so they go through the origin, and I'm wondering what, by the way, what the rest of the comic was too, because like it was only like
I had that thought too.
2 pages. Like what was that?
I would if it was more like the original First Appearance of the Hulk, where it's like you get like the nuke or whatever that gives him his power, and then like it's like a villain plot.
The
Okay, no, it's
reason
done.
the reason I would want number ones or big key issues like that when I was a kid was because it was a big deal to have something valuable. It was a big deal to have something that was like an artifact that was from the time that a thing was initially created. So it wasn't about what was in it. It was it's amazing I could get my hands on this, that I got a good deal on it, and it's a collector's item. And that's why it mattered. For them, it seemed more like they never knew what the origin of that character was, and that's not
I
how
wondered
old
that
comics
too.
work, because they keep going back. Old comics go back to the origin constantly. You can't get away from it. It's like you don't have to read the Spider-Man's origin. I guess Spider-Man's actual origin was Spider-Man was Amazing #1, right? Like you don't have to
Oh
actually.
no, it's Amazing Fantasy. 15.
Is the origin itself in 15, in the Amazing
Hmm.
Fantasy 15? It's been too long, I can't
Yep.
remember.
Yeah,
And
because
I
Amazing One
reviewed
is
that, but I
the
forgot.
chameleon story and the Fantastic Four
That's right.
story.
I forgot where exactly it actually showed up. But anyway, you don't need to read that to know that. They're gonna keep telling you it 6 billion times.
I thought that too, especially like remember when they used to have like the paragraph or whatever above the name would be like this person like he was hit by a nuclear explosion. Now he's radioactive, man.
Yeah, and it'll be like a paragraph, and it'll tell you the
Yeah.
origin. And so when Mel is, oh, that's how it happened. I'm like, there's no way you read this book and you don't know that.
Yeah, I had that thought too. It was pretty funny.
But you said something before we were recording about I can't remember what episode it was, but there was an episode where Bart harasses Homer to get another issue of that comic. It's like 27, and you were like, well, he should have just like tried to get Homer to buy number one or saved
Oh,
up
it was
for
with
number
Grandpa,
one.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
so
an old money.
can
But
I
he
can
wouldn't
I
have found it. It was just a joke.
can I
But
give
yeah.
you a stupid nitpick about that? So my stupid nitpick, especially because yeah, the continuity in this is loose anyway. But it's weird that they didn't make that number one. But whatever. Like in the first place, I mean. But like,
Mhm.
if you actually could look at the episodes like they're canonical, I'm gonna get really nerdy on you for a minute. The comic book guy acts like. This is so weird. He acts at the convention like it's a thing he doesn't bring out very often. And so they presumably wouldn't even know he had one when Bart is trying to get 27. But then the problem with that is that for some reason it's in the window later. I don't understand that. In the comic book guy episode, which by the way his first appearance, he's like, okay, I'll let you see something if you promise, whatever. And then he gets it out and he's like, I'll let you have it for $100. And then later it's just in his storefront for $100. I don't understand that.
It was just the first time they met him. I don't know.
Oh, really? You think they'd never been in that store before? Because I don't buy that. Not when Really, you think Milhouse was like, oh, there's a comic book shop in this town? I didn't know that. Like when he goes to the convention, and then later he's like, I want the ball card with the sideburns.
You just wanted his baseball card.
Okay, that's a stretch. I told you it was a really dumb nitpick. But I had that thought. I was like, oh, and the other thing I was thinking was. And I realize that like $100 is not like the most super valuable comic book. I also don't buy that comic even in 90 is only worth $100. Do not buy that. But
No.
because it had a black and white serial, you guys. Like there's no way that it would be that inexpensive. And it didn't look like it was in bad shape or anything. You don't put that in the storefront. Sunlight, like you're not gonna do that. It was fun at the convention, all the stuff that plays as a joke that now is so normal and mainstream because the geekdom thing is just with us, and people don't get beat up for being geeks in the same way that they used to. Like you've got that bit where it's like just being at a comic book convention is supposed to be funny, and there's a moment where a guy's like somebody asked for a particular like fake weapon, and he's like, I've only got a tricorder and a lightsaber and something else, and I'm like, wow, that was a joke in 1990. That's not funny now.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that is true. Yeah, just how much things have changed. I wish going to Comic-Con looked like that though.
Oh, you mean now?
Instead of being packed in like a sardine.
There's not 6 billion people there, and there's no celebrities, and you're really just there to get comics? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. When I was rewatching it this time, I was like, man, this looks great. I wish I could have this experience.
And I'm old enough that I've had some of that. I mean, I've been to really small cons like that.
Mhm.
And they still happen here and there. You have to go to really small towns where they really want a comic convention, but they don't have the money to get the big stars. So it's going to be like a headliner who's somebody that's, not super huge. And those are still my favorite conventions, man. Especially if it's somebody that's small but I care about. Topeka has here in Kansas has a small convention like that. Where there was a year where my dad and I went, and they had like a couple of Power Rangers, and it's a really great way to meet Power Rangers. But a couple Power Rangers, and I can't remember. I think maybe Eddie Munster from the Munsters was there, who's like one of the only surviving actors from
Oh,
that show
interesting.
still around. I've actually seen him in a couple things now, and then I forget what else. But anyway, stuff like that's still around.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I'm getting off the beaten path here. Well, anything else you want to make sure that we chat about before we get to categories?
Um,
Or is it a good time for that? I'm sure other things will come up as we're
yeah.
doing categories.
Yeah, no, if something comes up, I'll bring it up. But there's nothing that's coming to mind.
I mean, you had a lot of great notes. You want to go through your notes?
I mean, I can give a quick glance read note because I wrote my notes when I rewatched it the first time, and I haven't gone back to
Oh, sure. Well, I've mentioned at least some of them.
them.
I tried to credit you when I remembered that you wrote it down.
No, it's all good. I mean, a lot of my notes were pretty broad, so I feel like there's stuff that you could have easily come to your own like senses, so I wouldn't have even
Oh,
noticed.
sure. Well, there are definitely some things that I thought of that you wrote down, absolutely. But some of the Austin always writes down like background factoids and stuff, and I'm doing a little bit of research and finding some things on my own. But a couple things that you've got in there are things that I think I brought up earlier. Well, one note I wanted to give real quick is so a lot of first of all, a lot of obviously first this season. We haven't really talked too much about new characters that are recurring and how close they are. That's the thing we should probably bring up to
Oh
what
yeah.
they'll be later. Groundskeeper Willie shows up surprisingly late. I forget what episode,
And
but it's
his
like,
voice is slightly off,
oh, do
where
you
it's
think?
like, yeah, it's I don't know if it's higher, but he doesn't have like the more guttural voice, I think.
We
Um, yeah. No, it's slightly off. It's that same impression, but and what's interesting with him too is that all they wrote in the script was just like he would have an accent. So Dan Castellaneta went with Spanish initially, and they're like, "Oh God, we can't do that." So then he went with Swedish, and they're like, "No, we can't do that either." And then finally it was Scottish that he did, and they were like, "Okay, like that works."
and they get a lot of mileage later with kilts and bagpipes, so that was probably a good call.
Well, and Willie is one of the characters that I think the writers fall in love with, where they'll just keep bringing him back.
I
Him
mean,
and Milhouse, the writers love those two.
I was surprised to see because Dr. Hibbert shows up for the first time this season, and I was surprised to
And
see
they
him
love him this season.
pop up as much as he does. Yeah, and he's already doing that laugh really early, and pretty quickly he starts doing that laugh at really inappropriate times, and that's always funny. Like I think Bart
Yeah,
the Daredevil, he's doing that.
yeah, I think so. Like he's more stern here than he is later, because
Yeah,
you get to a certain point where we start to blur the lines between Hibbert and Dr. Nick. Um,
where they're both
but here,
incompetent.
yeah,
I like that
yeah,
he's. I don't know. I like that he's the doctor that's like actually credible and a good doctor, but he
that's what
has
I like too.
simultaneously a really good bedside manner and kind of a crappy bedside manner. Where like, and maybe I'm reading too much into it. I thought they were intentionally writing him kind of condescending, where it was like, whereas like he's always trying to like make people feel better about a situation, like regardless of what the situation is, so he just laughs at everything. Like I always thought that was the joke with him.
Oh yeah, I didn't really think about that, but yeah, I can see that.
And I guess Dr. Nick is here for the first time too.
Yeah, we get him for the first time. We get Phil Hartman, of course, comes in this season. So we get his two big major characters, Lionel Hutz and Troy McClure.
And Lionel Hutz is your favorite, and Troy McClure has always been one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, well Phil Hartman's my favorite actor in the show. I think he's wonderful. Apparently, Matt Groening wanted him for Troy McClure, I think it was, because he found that Phil Hartman can get the biggest laugh out of whatever line he's given, and I definitely agree with that. I think he's great.
Um, yeah, I can, when people would come in for the first time, like, oh, that's right, we haven't had them yet. Like Troy McClure was one of those.
Oh, for sure. And like this is his early like Troy McClure formula where it's him on that like invention game show thing with Dr.
Yeah,
Nick. You get that for like a little
I
bit
didn't know that
before
was
he
a
kind of
recurring
splits
thing, or I'd
off.
forgotten.
Yeah, no, that's a reoccurring joke for a little bit. And immediately with that, you get the "Hi everybody" catchphrase from Dr.
Hi,
Nick.
everybody. Yeah, I think right away. Yeah, I guess he doesn't do it the first time we see him,
Yeah, yeah, no, it's that second appearance.
because the first time it's Bart gets hit by a car.
Yep.
Look at me, man. I'm learning the show. Okay, let's go ahead and do categories. The reason I brought all that up was because I had a note about something I was wondering where it popped up, but I found the episode.
Oh, cool.
The crank call that Weird Al puts in phony calls is in this season. It's in Blood Feud.
Which one is that? That's because I can't think of that song off the top of my head.
Um, if, like, which one is the song?
Yeah, which phone like which Bart prank call is
Oh,
it?
which prank
Isn't
call
it?
was it? I'm trying to remember. It's the one where at the end of it, he Mo says that he's gonna carve his name on his back with an ice pick. That's the part of it I always remember. Um, but it's my crotch.
Oh, my crotch.
That's it.
Yes, of course.
It's that one. Yeah. And
Um,
and by the way, the crank calls start right away in first season. It's like first or second episode we get the crank calls.
yeah. Well, and this one has one of my favorite ones, which is the homosexual one, just because they bring it back later.
Yes,
Because Homer.
that's paid off so well. Where Homer doesn't know how that word is spelled, and he thinks it's homosexual. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
When
that
he's
is
got
one of
his
my
like
favorite
Terminator
gags
thing
of
going
that
on from the
episode.
first person POV, and he's trying to find Selma a husband, and he's like he analyzes them. It's hilarious.
Yeah, yeah, no, there are so many good spots with that where it's like pro, smoker, con, just a sign, pro, nice stride, con, stranger.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I also thought it was funny that the guy he ends up going after, the principal, is I think the first one he sees where he does that, and then he sees a bunch of other ones.
Oh no, it
Am I
is the
remembering that right?
last one.
Oh, is it the last one? Okay, I'm just forgetting that.
Yeah, no, it's because he's talking and then Homer's like, "Wait a minute," and it like does the eye zoom in, and
Ca-
it's like,
Can I make another horribly nerdy observation? Where people are like, why do you even know that? So, I know a lot of Weird Al songs really well, and phony calls I've heard a bazillion times, and so I was looking for that, and it finally pops up, and I realized that they had to edit the scene differently in phony calls so that it's only Bart laughing at the end of it, because in the episode it's Bart and Lisa like both on the phone together, and I guess Weird Al
unless the
or
laugh is taken from a different phone
yes,
call, maybe. Yeah,
yes, it's just Bart
that is
laughing. I
weird.
guess
Yeah,
because it's not Lisa's voice in the first place, so just in the audio in the song, it'd be weird if there were two voices laughing right then. I
yeah,
guess.
yeah, for sure.
I know, who cares? But it was a thing I noticed. I had to bring
It
it
should
up.
have been. It should have just been Skinner yelling from the homosexual one.
Okay, let's go ahead and get into our categories. I have lots of runner-ups this time because I was always taking notes. I would put in a thing and then something else would come up and supplant it. So I'll probably mention some of those as well because,
Yeah, for sure.
again, the quality of the season is so good. I'll probably have this later on as well, but it's so it's consistent that a lot of these could have taken the top spot for me that I also wrote down. And we'll probably find ourselves bringing up some episodes that haven't come up yet as we go through this, because a couple of my
Yeah.
favorite episodes we've not even talked about yet.
Oh, interesting. A lot of mine come back to episodes we've talked about. So
I mean, me
that's
too,
good.
but I've got at least one or two here that I'm noticing that we've not mentioned. Okay, let's go ahead and do you have any new episode formulas you wanted to throw out?
Oh yes, hold on. Sorry, I have that separate from my actual
Austin, did you take
categories.
notes, or were you lying when you said you took notes? You did,
No,
because I read some of them.
Yeah, no, I keep my episode formulas with my notes, but I have my categories separate.
Okay.
Uh, okay, yeah, no, I actually have quite a few more categories. Although some of them were ones that do connect to last season, which I can mention quickly.
Sure.
The number one being sports. We obviously had a bowling episode last season, and secondary Homer jobs. We had him being a like activist.
The
Uh,
sports would have been baseball and mini golf. Was there anything
yeah.
else?
Yes. So I have baseball with Dance and Homer, mini golf with Dead Putting Society, and then like the Daredevil thing with
Oh,
Bart the
right.
Daredevil. So I have Marriage Crisis, which we have the War of the Simpsons. Obviously, that's all about Homer and Marge and their issues. Bart gets hit by a car. I have because the third act turns into a marriage crisis between the two of them. Oh, I've the War of the Simpsons on here twice, so I don't know. It's sandwiched. That's
Yeah.
weird.
Are there any other ones that you would call like an actual marriage crisis episode?
Um, I don't think so. I think it was just those two.
Which is surprising because I think there were two in the first season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, there's or quite a few comparatively last season,
Because like,
just because there's so
because like
few
Marge
episodes.
is holding her own and she's standing up to Homer, but she's also standing up for a lot of other things this season. She's got a whole Crusader thing going on.
Hmm. Yeah, like I guess, what is it? Two cars in every garage and three eyes on every fish could also technically be one,
It kind of
but
is.
it's not like a focus, so I didn't really think to put it on there.
She doesn't like Homer's politics or lack thereof, and she doesn't like that he is. I don't know. I think she's like resisting the situation as much as she's resisting Homer's specific part in it, right? Like,
Hmm.
but importantly, it is him. I would call it a marriage crisis episode for this scene. You've got that bit where he says, Marge, why can't you just express yourself with your home duties? And she goes, okay, that's what I'll do. And then that's what
Yeah.
leads her to giving Burns the three-eyed fish at the end. So I'm going to put that in that category because of that scene.
No, that is fair. Yeah, I didn't think about that, but yeah, that does technically fit in. Um, so I also have Protest,
Yep.
which is Itchy and Scratchy and Marge, and I have The Way We Was, even though that's not like a big part of that. It's mainly at the start. Um, and then I have Vacation slash Simpsons in a New State or Country, with Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I don't think we technically. Oh, it's in Detroit. That's right. That they go to, and Brush with Greatness because they go
Yeah.
to.
Sorry, you reminded me of that moment where the guy can't tell from the orphanage can't tell Homer where his brother is, but he like gives him not so subtle clues, and it's obviously Detroit. The other scene, he's like, he's in Detroit. Then
Read between the lines, Mr. Simpson. Okay, he hands him like $20.
it's so good.
Detroit, your brother's in Detroit. Then I would Brush with Greatness because that episode starts with them going to a water park.
Oh, yep.
Um. Oh, okay. Sorry. Two. I didn't have one for kids helping Krusty, but the way it was written looked like The Way We was under it. But it's the next one, which is a past slash future episode, because of course. We did the sports ones. Secondary Homer jobs. You have sports mascot in Dance and Homer and car designer in Brother Where Art Thou?
Yep.
Which, by the way, if I could own any car, it'd be that car.
You want the bubble dome?
Yeah, I want to be able to honk like as many horns as I want that all play La Cucaracha.
What's the sticker price? $82,000.
Oh God, I'm ruined. Which, like that's a reference to that in Ant-Man, right? Where their van that's the horn on that van.
I wonder, because I had that thought, and then I was like, nah, I bet they come to that independently, and it's just sort of the obvious thing to do. Like, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, it's not like specific enough, but I've always wondered if that was what they were referencing. So I've side character spotlight episodes. I put Mr. Burns under two cars in every garage and three eyes on every fish, even though it's really just like the first act.
Yeah.
Um, so I put Itchy and Scratchy for Itchy and Scratchy and Marge, but that's only because while it's not technically a spotlight, every few seasons we do the Itchy and Scratchy episode where we stop and deal with like those two, like that show of those
Do we do
characters.
other episodes where we periodically stop and see like a whole cartoon? Because they did like 5 or 6.
hmm Yeah, no, every now and then we'll do just like a whole episode around those characters. So while it's technically not a spotlight, I figured I'd count it just because it is like a common thing.
Speaking of that, real quick, you had something in your background notes that I didn't know or didn't realize,
hmm
which was I think I think that's where I read this. I read a bunch of stuff today or yesterday. You said something about how the McBain sequences all like form a movie. I didn't realize that. Like you put them together and it's like it's like all connected and it's a movie.
Yeah, yeah, you can go on YouTube and just like look up McBain and you can find like people have edited it together and it's just like a little short action film.
And then you said that somebody made a movie called McBain, so they stopped using that character for a while.
Yeah, they have to start calling him just Rainier Wolfcastle, like the actor's name. But
Oh,
for a while
okay.
they just call him McBain. And then yeah, it's a Christopher Walken film.
Weird.
Yeah, yeah, so
McBain.
it's that name, and then they get it back eventually. I have Grandpa Simpson with Old Money. Even though, like you said, it does turn into more of a Grandpa and Homer Simpson episode by the end.
Yeah, but I went even more specific when I wrote down a formula for this, which was a recurring or background character falls in love and it doesn't work out.
Yeah,
Because that happens
that
twice, and I'm sure that will keep happening.
that's the Selma spotlight like special thing. Like that's always what we give her is some sort of romance angle. And that's obviously my next one is Patty and Selma with Prince Charming
Yep.
or Principal Charming.
Principal Charming, yep.
Yeah, yeah. So those are my episode
That
formulas.
is a premise that doesn't immediately grab me that is surprisingly watchable. Like, it's a great episode.
Mhm.
I
And the
shouldn't
school has
care.
that bizarre tower that it'll never have again.
Oh, yeah, what was that about? Um, I didn't have anything beyond the ones that you had.
Oh,
Let's,
and
yeah.
Principal Charming also introduces Mole Man, who is awesome, even though that's not his name in that episode. It's like Ralph Mellish.
Okay, let's go into our feelings for the season. What to you is the funniest moment of this season? I wrote down several, but I do have a definite top one.
Okay, so my funniest moment is the beginning of Bart the Daredevil, where they're setting up the jump that Lance Murdoch, I think, yeah, that he's gonna do, and it's where they put in like sharks, eels, like all this stuff, and then they dump in a lion, and just throughout that section you can see the lion's tail just going around the pool, and then specifically too where he makes the jump and he goes back to celebrate, and, like falls in, and then he finally gets out and the lion jumps out and pulls him back in.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, no, that always gets me. That and the ambulance scene at the end, where the ambulance like starts to drive away, it crashes into the tree, and then he falls down the gorge
That was my
again.
number two because you do not expect that happening because they've already done that gag and it's really funny that he keeps falling down the gorge and then he's about to go he goes into the ambulance, he rolls out of the ambulance, goes down and does it again, and it's all off camera. It's so good. The timing of that is genius.
Yeah, yeah, and then there's another episode where they show like the second fall, and like he's at the bottom and he's like laying there beat, and then like the gurney that he was on smashes him in the head.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, this is my favorite. I already told you about this, and on a second viewing, it's still my favorite. So you get the beginning of Bart gets hit by a car, and you're like 30 seconds in, and I got completely sideswiped by this. So they put the title of the episode up on the screen as if they always do this, and they don't. That's not how this show goes. And it says Bart gets hit by a car like it's a Star Trek episode, right? Like in parentheses or in quotation marks, or maybe just it doesn't have that. I can't remember, but it comes up regardless on the screen. And then immediately Bart indeed does get hit by a car. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's like Bart gets hit by a car.
It's so good. It's almost like because I know that there's a lot of stuff in the season where, or at least a couple things where they'll kind of make fun of themselves for being backed into a corner, and they'll make their being not sure what to do in an episode the joke. Like, you mentioned that that's what they did at the end of the last episode of the season, where they weren't sure like what the episode was even about, so they just make it a conversation about we don't know what the moral is. So like, and then Homer says what I think is not the funniest but the best line of the season, and I've quoted this forever.
It's just
You've
a
heard me
bunch
say
of
this.
stuff that happens.
You've heard me say this on the channel 1,000 times. I didn't know where I got it from. It's just a bunch of stuff that happened. It's my favorite line in the season. But yeah, that whole thing is hysterical.
Yeah,
That
no,
like
that's great.
I think that might be them going. We weren't sure what to call this episode. So this Bart gets hit by a car, and then they make fun of themselves for calling it just the thing that happens at the beginning of the episode. I think that could have happened. That might be what happened.
Yeah, maybe.
Couple other runner-ups I really want to mention. Bleeding Gums taking all night to sing the national anthem in Dancing Homer.
Best part about that for me is everybody else is like, ugh, except for Lisa, who's with it the entire time. Like you said, it's very like we're not forgetting the characters in these jokes.
Yeah, exactly. Um, sometimes it's just line readings, right? You got that bit in Blood Feud where Homer is um, pretending.
I think you're about to hit my funniest line of the season.
Oh, am I really? Am I really?
Yep.
He's pretending to be Mr. Burns to get his angry letter back.
Hello, I'm Mr. Burns.
What's your
Hi, Mr. Burns. What's your
first name? I
I
don't
don't know.
know.
Yeah, my dad and I quote that all the time.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's my funniest line of the show or the season.
Well, I guess we're at that category now. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to steal your thunder there.
No, it's all good. That it's a hilarious line.
I hesitated for a second because I was trying to remember the moment. And then as I was reading, oh, that's right. Yeah, that whole thing was great. So is that indeed funniest line for you?
Yeah, it's my funniest line for the season.
Mine is from Dead Putting Society, which is the big episode that we didn't bring up, I don't think, at all earlier. That I've got all over my notes. It's
interesting.
It's one of my favorites. It's probably my top 3 of the season.
Wow.
Lisa, just because it's funny, just comedy. Lisa, if I win, I get a protractor. Homer, too bad we don't live on a farm. And that's what I was like. It took me a minute, and then I was like, why did he say that? I'm an idiot.
Yeah, I had that for a second on my second rewatch. I was like, wait a minute. Oh. Yeah, no, that line's really funny.
A runner-up, real quick, is a real offhanded thing that's really like blink and you miss it. But I laughed for like 2 straight minutes. I just something about this hit me wrong. Same. So I. Oh, sorry, not the same episode. Homer versus Lisa in the Eighth Commandment. Homer, how'd you get in here? Cable guy, your door wasn't locked in any serious way. Now we get to best new character. I know what yours is.
Yeah, mine's obvious because it's my favorite character in the show, but it's Lionel Hutz. I also put Groundskeeper Willie under runner-up, even though I think his voice is a little awkward, and he's only in the season for like a second. But he's one of my favorite supporting characters. So I felt like I should put him as a runner-up.
I don't always even know what we mean by some of these categories because it's like best new character because it's a character you like later on or the way it's utilized in this season.
I had that too. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Lionel Hutz, like, he's not entirely what he is moving forward, but it's enough of it that I was like, okay, he's still that character.
He gets more that way in his second appearance than his first, I think.
Hmm.
I guess mine
Sure.
is Troy McClure, but again, just because I like that character later, like he does do that. I think he has one instance of you might know me from such whatevers, but
Yeah,
he's
yes,
not
he does.
he's
Yeah,
not exactly himself yet. I think for the this season of the way he's utilized Tibbard for me,
that
but
makes sense. Yeah,
wouldn't be later, just the way he's used in this season.
yeah, he's got some funny moments too, like in the War of the Simpsons, where he's got the fly in his glass. It's like Homer, the chemicals used in this fake ice cube are like extremely hazardous. Honestly, it would have been healthier if there really just was a fly in
This is
my
a real
drink.
fly. Butts and Sim was talking about the gorge thing from earlier and said in the movie that crashed ambulance is still there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
That's
just in the
great.
background.
Um, okay. This is, uh, for me, the toughest category because there's so many things. Most legitimately heartwarming moment.
Yeah, that was definitely tough. I went with just the ending sequence of Lisa's substitute with Homer, where he goes to each kid like one by one,
You
and
have to.
then
You
I
have to.
love the end bit where like Marge starts to talk to him, and he's like, I'm on the biggest roll of my night or of my life. Let's just go to bed."
So, I did not expect to tear up during a Simpsons episode. I did, and I did twice. And when I watched it the second time, because like I said, I watched this in the background the week after we did the first video, and then this week I went back through it again and paid more attention. I teared up the first time around. Second time around, I was like, I know I teared up during this episode. I do not remember what the moment was, and then it happened, and it happened again. And it's not the scene you're talking about. It's the
Is it
note.
the
Just the
note?
note kills me. I can't deal with it.
That's the big thing that people go back to with that episode. I think like I feel like I picked the like lesser heartwarming moment. But the note, absolutely,
And for me,
it's
it was
wonderful.
that
That entire scene.
and everything thereon. Because like I said that earlier, that's not where you expect that whole thing to go. And then I'm just riveted by everything that happens after that. I have to put that whole last 5 minutes kind of in a box. Um, but yeah, like it's it's a mentor doing kind of the Mister Rogers thing, like telling a kid that she's that she matters and that she can be liked for who she is. I mean, that's what that is. Yeah, it really got me. I don't know, just like you don't know what to expect with that, and then something about it just being so like finite, ending in a period, just everything about the that image. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely wonderful. And like I said, it's got just that really impactful line before he actually leaves. Just, that like entire third act is just wonderful. I mean, that entire episode is, but I just mean like on a heartwarming like side. And I
Busted.
think you can tell. Oh,
Sorry.
what's that? Sorry.
No, just real quick. Busted Sim says Lisa's substitute is pretty much what Futurama's big emotional hitters are built on.
For sure, yeah. I mean, both of these shows do such a good job of balancing that.
But I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
Oh, crap. What was I gonna say? That's right. What I was gonna say was I think the writers definitely looked at this episode and they could tell it resonated because we get two big Homer and Lisa episodes next season. So I think they were definitely like, this is a relationship that works really well. And for me, I honestly think it's kind of the heart of the show in a way, in that their relationship as the show moves on is really interesting and how they're both at odds with each other but still love each other at the end of the day, and like how they come back to each other. It's really interesting, and like we'll obviously see more as we go along. Um, but yeah, I think it's pretty great.
Um, so there, like I said, there were a bunch of other things that I could have said. Like I said, that was difficult. That had to go to the top, but I felt weird about it because there
Mhm.
were so many other things that could have gone there. And it's nuts that this season has so many things in this category, like that legitimately really work. Obviously, Bart breaking down to his teacher and Bart gets an F is on that list. Uh, Bart suddenly getting that he cares about his sister on the roof about Bart versus Thanksgiving. That's brilliant.
Oh, that
Uh,
also has a line that I just remembered I have
yeah.
to mention because it's hilarious, which is like Bart and Lisa are like both like chatting with each other on top of the roof, and we pan down and it's Homer at a window, and he's like, "Wow, Marge, we're really great parents." And
And
that
don't
gets me every time.
and one thing that's really impressive about the show sometimes is that it doesn't do that thing that the Marvel movies will sometimes do that we like to complain about, where there'll be a moment that's like really kind of heartwarming or heart wrenching, that's really emotional, where you're caring about characters, and then immediately it's undercut by a joke. That that doesn't undercut that scene at all.
No.
Like it interrupts it, but I think it works because it's not laughing at you for caring. I think is the thing where sometimes you'll have that where it's like just everything shuts down and doesn't let you feel what you're feeling anymore. Like that doesn't do that.
Yeah, well, and I think Lisa's Substitute has the opposite of that, in which you have Bart's like B plot where he's running for class president,
Yeah.
and that is the joke plot, while you have Lisa's more serious plot.
Hmm.
But Bart's plot ends up being to the point where he's upset, and Homer also has to like confront him about it after he talks to Lisa. Like we start with a joke plot and then build it on top of
It turns
Lisa's
into a
upset.
dramatic
Yeah.
and heartfelt moment. Yeah, it's amazing how well those two things end up paralleling each other, because during the Bart scenes you're just laughing at that subplot because it's really funny, and it's easy to miss that they're so thematically connected. Like they're both about how those two kids feel about school and education, and like one of them is the class clown and one of them is the intellectual, and they both are getting like everything they ever wanted when it comes to school. Like she's getting like a real honest to god education, in that like she says, like she understands why life is worth living. It's not just because she had a crush on that teacher. Like he's teaching her something about life. Like that's really happening. And with Bart, it's more comedic, of course, but he just wants school to be all about popularity, and he wants kids to like him, and it all falls apart for both of them at the end.
Yeah, and we're looking at Homer too, in that he cares more about Bart's plot than he does Lisa's, while his is the more kind of like the sillier and like least important one out of the two of them.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. Daniel Davis says that it's still the best Lisa episode, and after we watch more of this, I'll see if I agree with that. But
It's like I really like Round Springfield, the plot, like the sequel episode to Moaning Lisa, but this one's really great too. They're like neck and neck for me. It's a little hard to decide.
I also really like Homer's. I don't know. It's maybe a little corny, but I also like Homer's "I don't know if I really love you anymore" speech at the end of Bart gets hit by a car.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of the season one thing, which is my number one heartwarming thing there when Marge comes to his work and they like walk out together. It's like that where it is cheesy, but it does legitimately work.
I
So I'm
think it.
not really like having an issue with it.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't hold a candle to those other three, but
Oh, for sure, yeah. I also get hit. I again, it's really easy, but I get hit like every time in Bart's dog gets an F, where Bart kind of realizes he's gonna lose his dog, and it's like, okay, let's have one last night together. Even though I don't really like the resolution, I think that moment hits me really hard.
yeah. Well, and you're a dog person.
Well, yeah, and that's the other thing. And I mean, my mom was constantly threatening to take my dog away when I was a kid, so it was
Oh
like it just hits
no,
me a little more.
man. See, I didn't have dogs until like 3 years ago. Like I had to be an adult and get married and have kids before I had pets, and so like I have that more now, but it doesn't resonate with me as hard as it would if I had that when I was a kid. Uh,
Yeah.
what is your favorite pop culture reference?
Um. Hold on. I don't see. Oh crap! I didn't write anything on that.
Okay, well I can give mine while
Hold on.
you're
You
thinking.
say yours while I think about mine. Yeah.
There were a couple of really great ones. I ultimately went with the Psycho parody, which we talked about. We
Great one. Yeah.
in Itchy and Scratchy and Marge, where Maggie hits Homer with that mallet, and then a bucket of paint spills over, and then they do the Psycho theme. That's wonderful.
They
Uh,
do the eye shot. Yeah.
yeah, my quick runners up. Homer's "I Am the Champions," more of the Simpsons. That's pretty great. Bart and Lisa singing the Shaft theme is kind of classic, and I remembered that moment, but not that episode for some reason.
Yeah. No, that moment's really great. I also like the guy doing karaoke before that, where he's like really soft spoken, and then he grabs the mic and he's just like, "Well, I was born in a wagon of a traveling band." It's great.
I also really liked the Siskel and Ebert bit in the way we was.
Yeah. Oh, that one's really good too. Yeah. It was a nonstop thrill ride of chills, kills, and thrills.
Did you have one?
I think I'm gonna go with the Psycho parody too, because that one's great. Yeah. I like how that continues throughout the episode too, like the lemonade bit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, where they're watching Porch Pals, where Itchy and Scratchy are giving each other lemonade, and then you get the Psycho music as Maggie hands Homer a glass of lemonade.
Best music choice.
That would be Homer singing Joker in The Way We Was, because I cannot hear that song without thinking of that.
People call me the Space Cowboy.
Cowboy! Yeah, it's great.
I think the lyrics to Capital City are just genius.
Oh, yeah. That's kind of our first real like song made for the show, I think. I don't think we get any in season one.
Yeah, I don't think
Um,
so either.
mhm. I know moving forward, because my song choice for both this season and last season are just them playing a song, but moving forward, at least for like the next few seasons, it'll be original songs on the show.
Jensel there in the comments says his favorite pop culture reference is the Wonder Years parody in 3 Men in a Comic Book, which I should have brought up too because it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's great. What are you doing? In that moment, I realized that my father and I were closer than we'd ever. Hey, stop that!
Okay, did you have a most disturbing moment?
Yeah, mine felt more arbitrary this season because there wasn't anything I found super disturbing. But I just wrote the cable guy saying that he's gonna break into Flanders' house from Homer's The Ten Commandments.
I don't think Flanders is home. Even better.
Even
Just
better.
walks off.
Yeah, exactly. That guy in general is just super shady. Like when he tries to run over Homer.
Yeah, he's the new evil babysitter. That's who that guy is.
And it's funny because he's in a season one episode for half a second. He's just like a guy in the background. So I wonder if they just were like looking through their
Interesting.
models, found a guy, and they were like, put him in this
I
episode.
guess we'll make him the cable guy. You know, if that had happened by like season 9 or 10, they would have tried to get Jim Carrey for that role.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's
Um,
one of the guys in Homer's Night Out that like talks about his like that video that he or the picture he was in.
Oh, Busted Sim said that the Wonder Years thing happened because one of the writers was related to the narrator from that show.
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
Interesting, if that's true.
Actually, hold on. If because I don't know who the narrator is in that, but there is a writer that is related to an actor. So I wonder if I did know that, but just didn't know his name. Because now I'm trying to think of what it is.
Well, my most disturbing moment of the season,
Oh no,
Austin,
that's not what I'm thinking of. Yeah,
I went for the "It's All Your Fault" daydream from Bart versus Thanksgiving.
I almost went with that. Yeah, it's your fault America's lost its
Lost
way.
its way. Austin, what is your best couch gag this season? Once again, we're repeating a lot of them, but
Oh
they're.
yeah, it was Daniel Stern that narrated the Wonder Years. I didn't realize that.
Oh, okay.
That is what I was thinking of too. Yeah, I just know him from Home Alone, so I was thinking of that before the Wonder Years. That's pretty cool. Sorry, what was my what?
Couch gag.
Couch gag. It's them when they run in Itchy and Scratchy and Marge, and there's just no couch, and they all look around and they're like, "That's
That's
the one I picked."
that's one of the ones that gets repeated the most, and the one I picked I think is also one that gets repeated a lot. And we see it at least twice this season, I think. But the one where Grandpa Simpson wakes up when he's on the couch when they walk in, just he's like, "Rah!" And his character model is kind of off, which makes it funnier to me. I don't know, but like that face is wrong, and it makes it funnier. And I think part of the reason I picked that too was because Mikey was watching an episode of My 2-Year-Old with me when that came up, and he started cracking up at that for some reason, and that made it funnier.
Yeah, there's a few things with Grandpa that are off model now that you say that, because you also get the part where he like pulls his pants down, and his legs are like really skinny, and that's just like not how they animate that later on.
Uh, I found several good chalkboard gags. What was your favorite?
So I put mine as the I'm not a 32-year-old woman. That's the one that I picked.
uh, we had fun with like visuals with chalkboard gags a couple times, and I felt like I had to pick one of those. Although I did really like, I forgot about this, in the way we was, I do really like I will not get very far with that attitude. That's pretty funny. But I had to go with I will not cut corners, and then the rest
Oh, and
of
it's
them
got the
were just quotation marks underneath. That's genius.
I forgot about that one. That one's probably mine actually. Yeah, that's great.
And then there was also in 3 Minute a Comic Book, I will not show off, and it's written in calligraphy. That's pretty genius as well. I'm going to assume that we both have the same MVP for this season. I think there's only one choice for this, just like with last season, but we'll see if you picked mine. What do you say is the most valuable player for this season?
So I picked one, and then I had like a runner-up family member, but
Okay.
it's Mr.
It's
Burns.
Burns. It has to be,
Yeah,
yeah.
of course. And then for like the family, like my runner-up, I picked Marge because I think this may be her best season.
It's her best season, yeah. And I mean, it's really easy to say Bart again.
Hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. But yeah, there's no way getting around it being Mr. Burns because he's everywhere and he's perfect.
Every time. Yeah, it's always good.
Yeah.
Favorite guest character, and I realize that this can sometimes, pardon me, kind of mix up with best new character, but I like to think of that as, especially at this point moving forward, like celebrity voices.
That's what I
Um,
put it as, yeah.
is kind of what I'm doing with it. But I guess if you knew for sure that it was a character that would only show up once and wasn't recurring, you could use it regardless. But I don't know the show well enough to know that. So
Yeah, it's weird because you get people like Miss Krabappel or like, Troy McClure who are technically guest stars, but like I was thinking more like the celebrity thing. Like you were
I was
with like
thinking guest versus recurring.
mhm,
So like, but
yeah.
you could have a one-off, I guess, that does show up later. I guess there also is the difference between like regular recurring and only shows up, a few times. Like, so I don't know.
Yeah, well in last season I picked Sideshow Bob, but it was more like Oh, they bring in a celebrity, like, and he comes in every few years, I guess, but it's still like they're bringing in like a guest celebrity. I mean, but also with season one, it's more slim pickings. So,
Like, you could get away with DeVito for this category, even though he shows up again.
oh, absolutely, yeah. Well, and on my notes, I listed all the guest celebrities too. Well, and I even included John Lovitz in that, even though he does come in a few times.
He feels more regular recurring this season, but I know he won't be.
Hmm.
And
Well,
part
and
of that is
he's
he'll get his own
technically
show
only in two
eventually. But
episodes, yeah.
what do you say?
Well, and he's technically only in two episodes, but yeah, like he does feel like he's in it a little bit more.
Yeah,
Well, in his show, the showrunners for season three and four are the creators of that show, The Critic.
I'd love if we ever had the time. I'd love to do a retrospective with you on that show.
Yeah, I've never seen any of it. I've just seen the crossover episode,
I'd
and
be
The
curious to
Simpsons
see what
did
you
not
thought of that.
cross over into The Critic.
5 people will care about that, but that's the thing I like. I like John Lovitz a lot, and I got to see his stand up in person right as the virus happened, and like that was the last live thing I went to, and Vince and I went and saw him together, and he was like kind of sick that night and coughing constantly, and every 5 minutes he'd go, "Don't worry, it's not the virus." You can't possibly know that, John Lovitz, and we were sitting in the front like feet away from him, and he's cracking up everywhere, and we're like, I gotta see John Lovitz, I hope it's worth it. Yeah, he was great.
I got to see John Lovitz, and he killed me.
He was really funny though,
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
and he kept trying to get Vince to fight with him because he'd say something like kind of politically incorrect or something, or maybe just like not lining up with Vince's politics, and Vince would kind of give a look where like, I don't really buy into that. Vince thought he was really funny, like he was laughing a lot, but occasionally he'd give Lovitz kind of look, and Lovitz would like try to get Vince to fight with him, but he wouldn't do. It was really funny.
He should have just been like, "That's perfect. I love it." Like his art character here.
So I'm sorry, did you give best guest character?
So mine feels arbitrary, but it's Dustin Hoffman
Same here.
in Lisa Substitute. Danny DeVito's excellent. I also think Cloris Leachman gets the best line out of all of them in terms of comedy. In Three Men in a Comic Book, where she's watching like a I don't know, like some sleazy like soap opera or something, and she leans back and she's like, "Filthy, but genuinely arousing."
Yeah, that was really funny. If it
There's just so
weren't-
many good ones this season. I don't know.
If it weren't for Hoffman, I would feel the need to give it to Larry King,
Oh, for sure, Larry King's really good. Yeah.
because he reads the Bible and it's in One Fish Two Fish, and it's killer. Hi,
Yeah.
I'm Larry King. In the beginning,
Tracy Ullman's also really good.
and then he gets into all the begats, and Homer keeps fast forwarding, and there's more begats.
Yeah. Another big one that I think we have to mention is James Earl Jones,
Yep.
who's really great in Trash of Horror.
And plays that totally straight, of course.
Yeah, and his reading of The Raven is amazing.
And coincidentally, my mom had the Bible on tape read by James Earl Jones.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, and
Larry King never did that, but James Earl Jones actually did that.
yeah, that's pretty cool. And with James Earl Jones, because we will bring in like guest celebrities for Treehouse of Horror, but I think he's the only one that is in all three shorts, as opposed to just the one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean he's got like one line in the Poltergeist kind of like haunted house one, and then he's the one alien who disappears because it'll just be Kang Kodos moving forward.
So real quick before we reveal a commentary, and then we'll take a little break before we do that commentary. I said we would hit 3 hours. We probably won't, but we're gonna get a lot closer than I thought we were. We're already, we're already at 2 hours. But it goes by so fast, Austin. I wanted to throw out a couple of references to previous episodes that I was surprised to see and that I thought were really great. I didn't expect this recurring line. There's a place in Bart gets hit by a car where he brings back, "Ow, quit it.
Yeah,
Ow,
well, I
quit
think
it."
that's also a Tracy Ullman bit.
Oh, is it? Okay.
It's been so long since I've watched those shorts, but I think that's where that comes from.
I don't know if that
Same
keeps
with like
happening
the
after that. Like, I don't know if he keeps doing that, but I was surprised to see that again.
yeah, there's a few kind of holdovers from the shorts that show up like that and frosty chocolate milkshakes.
The one that blew my mind, and I think it's just because I brought this up when we did the commentary on it, and because I thought it was really funny. But you had that terrible slant rhyme from the Krusty episode last season where he says, "Give a hoot, read a book." There's a poster in the background of Lisa's Substitute where it comes back, and it's Krusty.
Yes, there is.
It's Krusty on a poster in her classroom, and it says "Give a hoot, read a book." And I was like, I can't believe they thought that was as funny as I did, and it's back.
I didn't think about that, but yeah, that is there, yeah. And you also get that great Krusty bit with the water park they go to, where it's like the shameless promotion, where he just gets the kids to chant like "Bring me there now," like mom and dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we keep referencing the evil babysitter again. There's a place where Homer, I think it's when he gets free cable, when he's flipping through cable channels, and the exact broadcast for when she was on the run is on again.
You also get that with the Duff commercial from season 1.
But at
You
least it's
hear
a
it like in the
commercial.
background. Oh no, for sure.
It's like, how is that happening again? The exact because it's Brockman saying the same like corny pun he did last time.
Yeah.
Like, okay. And there's a wanted
favorite...
poster for her somewhere too.
Yeah. My favorite for just because now that you're saying it, now there's like stuff coming back to me.
Yeah.
One of my favorite ones is when they get cable, when Homer's flipping through channels, and I think that you get the Duff commercial there. There's like a point where he's flipping through and you just hear lemonade from the Porch Pals episode.
What? Really?
Yeah, it's just one of the things he flips
That's
past.
so random. That's really funny. All right, well, folks, we're going to go ahead and do our episode commentary here pretty soon. I'm going to pull up the poll results and see. I think the tie has been broken.
Sweet.
It was broken earlier. I didn't mention it, but I'm going to see if there's a new one. No, there's not a new tie. And it has... it landed on Bart Gets an F. We're going to do the first episode of the season.
I won!
You were right. Ultimately, you were right. It was 2 men in a comic book for so long. Because I put the poll up on, I don't know, Wednesday of last week or something. Wednesday or Thursday. Or no, maybe it was even later than that. But anyway, for 2 or 3 days, it was it was 2 men in a comic book. And then it was tied for a while between that and Treehouse. And then neither of those got it, which really surprised me. Because I still thought it would end up being Treehouse, but it was 18%. It was the second. It was almost there.
Yeah, I voted for Lisa's Substitute, but yeah, I figured it would be Bart Gets an F.
I voted for 3 Men in Comic Book just because it's me and it's obvious, and I knew I would have more to say about
that.
That's
a great episode, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Did we actually do favorite episode?
No, we haven't done those last 2 yet.
Have we not?
Favorite and least favorite. Nope.
I have those written at the beginning. How did I not go to those? Okay.
Well, I have them written at the bottom, so I just assumed we had the same.
Yeah, we should do those at the end. That's great. I just went to episode formulas. I don't know why I did that. Anyway, okay, let's just do them both rapid fire. What is your favorite and then least favorite episode, Austin?
So my favorite episode should probably be obvious by now, but it's Lisa's Substitute.
Yeah.
Just everything about that episode. It's both really funny and it like really resonates. My least favorite was Hard, because
nothing's bad.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's like looking at it, it's like, but it's not like a bad episode. But it's Old Money, which Like it is a good episode. It's just I don't know, something had to be at the bottom.
Yeah, I guess I'll start with worst first, just to go on to the just to tag on to that point. Um, I had to pick something, so I went with Simpson and Delilah, just
I think
because
that's my second one, yeah.
I don't I never love hair product plots. I don't know, it just doesn't do anything for me. Like, oh, he's got hair now. Like, it's not inherently funny. I feel the same way about a Tick episode, where there's an episode where Tick gets a mustache and he's like strutting around and he's got a mustache, and then the whole joke is it's like a sentient mustache, and like, I don't know, it's fine. It's not that funny. This is better than that, because I do like the joke of, now that Homer has hair, people pay attention to him. Like, that works okay.
Yeah, we're doing some commentary about like the business world and like
Yeah.
how we see each other. But overall, I agree. That's not my favorite episode of the season. It's not like bad or
And the
anything.
assistant character
It's just kind of is
works
there.
okay, and that's an actor I've liked in things.
Yeah. Well,
I don't
as a kid, I always thought that was Tony Todd.
I
It
don't
was
remember
fun
his name,
going
but
back to it.
I'm
That's
almost positive that that's the guy from Independence Day and Mrs. Doubtfire.
yes, it is.
Okay, I was pretty sure that's who that was.
Yeah, and he's the first celebrity to actually put his name in the credits.
Oh,
Uh,
interesting.
yes, because Albert Brooks doesn't. He's just like A. Brooks, and obviously Dustin Hoffman here. It's not Dustin Hoffman. He's Sam Eddick.
So anyway, well, I'm glad I remembered to do those categories. My best episode. So the actual best episode of the season is, I think, definitely Lisa Substitute. My favorite is still 3 Men in a Comic Book. I can't help but not put that, just because of the ways in which it resonates with me, but only by
For
that
sure.
much.
Yeah, my second was
It's not
Itch
the
and
best. It's
Scratchy
my
and
favorite.
Marge. But yeah, no,
That's
that
it.
is a really good episode.
That's definitely my top 3 or 5. I guess fine. I would put that actually over the golf episode, but the golf episode is probably 4 or 5 for me. I really like that one. I don't know why, but it's funny.
No, that one is pretty good. And it's the first time we're really dealing with Homer versus Flanders.
Yeah, and
And we get his whole family there too.
and Flanders being overly religious, I guess, starts a little earlier in the season, maybe. But we get even more of it there, or is that more where it starts? I can't remember. I can't remember if he's
Um,
doing that when Homer like sees his basement, or is that the same episode?
that's the same episode.
Oh, okay, okay,
No,
okay.
that
I was
is
thinking
the
that was earlier.
start of the religious thing, but it's not as hardcore as it will be later. Because
No, it gets
obviously
ridiculous.
the Flanderized thing comes from Flanders.
Oh,
um,
there's a major component to the season that we haven't mentioned yet that we really probably should, and that is, and especially because you mentioned it last video about the previous season, is that the first season tried to be more grounded than ultimately the show will, and it doesn't get like still not super ultra cartoony, comparatively. Like, it will, it still has like sort of real life actions and consequences, but then it'll do like goofy, more cartoony things, like the joke with him like going down the gorge and then falling back again. Like, he shouldn't be able to survive that, but he does. But then also we get the
well,
supernatural stuff finally that we've not done at all
yeah.
up to this
Well, what I was
point.
gonna say too with the gorge, I think one of the things that makes that joke work so well is that it goes super cartoony of him falling down, and then when you see the aftermath, it's not cartoony and he's all bloody and stuff. And then we get kind of cartoony again, and then he's hospitalized like with like all of his bones broken. So we're like kind of mixing that realism with cartooniness, where like yeah, if a cartoon character fell like off a cliff like that, they'd probably just get back up and the cartoon would keep going. But here we're kind of mixing it, despite the fact that we are moving forward into the cartooniness.
It helps
Um,
that it's at the very end of the show and you know that Homer's going to be okay next episode. So if they did that to him in the middle of the episode, we'd have to actually deal with what happens to him, but it happens right at the very end, so we don't even have to know like how many bones he broke or any of that. Like, we never know that. We see him get, life flighted, but like we never, and then he keeps hitting the side. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's great. But yeah, like you said, we get like our first supernatural thing. Like we get a ghost this season.
We get a ghost and we get the devil twice. We get
Mhm.
Flanders Devil twice, and that's what made me think of it. Is that we're clearly intentionally making him overly religious because when we do the devil thing, we have to take the most religious character in the show and make him the devil. Like, of course, we're doing that.
Well, and that doesn't technically happen until like the one tree house, but he's got that voice. So like I wonder if that was always
I
intentional.
assumed in the first place it was supposed to at least remind you of Flanders.
It could be, yeah, because we're also so early. I don't know if that's what we're thinking, and it's just like a similar voice. I'm not entirely sure.
Or maybe they realized the voice was similar and then they played into that.
Yeah, yeah, it could be that too. Um,
Was there any other supernatural stuff beyond that? I think it's
mm,
all just kind of celestial stuff. Like,
yeah, yeah, we're still 2 seasons away from like God melting all the snow and stuff like that.
yeah, I mean, in your notes, you mentioned that Bart prays for a miracle, and then he gets a snow day in Bart Gets an F, which I guess we're just about to watch. I don't see that as necessarily supernatural because it could have been a coincidence.
No, that is true, but that's kind of our first real like getting there moment.
Sure.
'Cause I forgot about that until you said that, but that is in my notes, yeah. Um,
I read your notes, so you didn't have to remember them.
no, perfect. I mean, it's my thoughts, so I they should be in there somewhere. Yeah, no, if they didn't do anything else supernatural after that, it could easily have just been a coincidence, but I think the fact that they do go to those places later leads me to say like that is kind of the first big supernatural moment in the show.
Maybe so.
But it's definitely not in your face like yes, this is God and this is like what he's doing.
The skies don't depart. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. There's no like God hand coming down giving Bart a thumbs up.
Well, folks, we're going to go ahead and take a real quick break, 4 or 5 minutes, and then we'll be right back to do our commentary. So I still haven't made a screen for this. I should do that. So if anybody happens to pop in, I know it's really late. If anybody happens to pop in, they're like, where are those guys? And I don't know, they just can't sleep. They want to watch some Geek Evolution. Just let them know. We'll be right back, and then we're going to do our commentary on Bart Gets an F, and then we're going to bid you farewell because it's getting late and my mouth is not working anymore. We'll be right back in just a few minutes. Everybody take a break and join us for that commentary. Hey folks, I am back and just waiting for Austin to return. I probably didn't take anything like 5 minutes, but I didn't shut my camera off like he did, so if I sit at my desk, I guess I gotta chat with you guys. Give me 1 second, I gotta turn a light on over here. And I want to thank everybody that is still here live for hanging out with us as insanely late as it is on a Monday evening. It's still crazy that we're doing this show on a Monday because last night my basement flooded and we weren't able to do this. So I'm glad we were able to get it knocked out the day after, even though we had to start so late because the show's still fresh in my mind. I was honestly really worried after having to deal with that thing and some other things today that I wouldn't remember enough about this and be sharp enough to keep up with Austin, but it has, I think, worked out okay, and once again, we've managed to get this close to 3 hours. With the break, we're going to nearly get there. But while we're waiting for Austin, if anybody wants to chat about anything, especially Simpsons related, feel free to let me know. Busted Sim Cap should just screen grab the various technical difficulties card that show up throughout the show for these moments. That would be amusing, except people might actually believe it. Oh my god! Whoa! He's going for a ride, folks.
That would make it even better.
It would.
One thing we didn't mention is the kind of Homer dying plot in One Fish, Two Fish, Red.
We have to. It's brilliant. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and we do a really good job of just hitting every major character relationship that Homer has in one episode.
Yeah, and the way he handles that, I just really buy what his priorities are, and we managed to again show the humanity and compassion behind that guy without turning him into a different character and without it going so sappy that it's unbelievable even for the context of this goofy cartoon show. I really like all the stuff with his dad where he finally expresses some real affection and appreciation for his father, and then they're doing father-son stuff that they never did before, and of course that kind of echoes the way he and Bart are, because they don't spend time together either. And then and then you get several scenes where they're doing things together, and then he keeps missing things on his list, and finally by the end he's like, okay, bye dad, he just drives off.
Son, I love you. He just drives along.
And there's a lot of stuff with him and his dad this season. It's not just that. There's also the obviously his spotlight episode. It's really funny to get that, and then later I Have No Son.
Oh yeah, no kidding. And we do quite a bit with Homer and Grandpa where we kind of go back and talk about their relationship. And that as well, especially when you get into stuff with Homer's mom. Which is kind of interesting here because, like you said to me the other day, when we see Marge in The Way We Was, she's kind of leaning on a kind of hippie kind of personality.
Yeah.
Which is what his mom is. Obviously, we don't know that yet.
Oh, see, I don't remember his mom. When you said that, I was like, I don't remember what she's like at all.
Yeah, well, we kind of do the, that's where, the rebellious nature of Bart and Lisa come from, is Homer's mom.
Okay. Yeah,
because she is both the, rebellious type like Bart is, but she's also very, book smart, like Lisa. She's kind of one of those characters where we introduce them, and we give her a personality trait from each character so that she can kind of relate to every single person and have a dynamic with them.
Wow. So you're saying that he kind of married his mom?
In a way, obviously we don't know that yet, but
But also it gets weird because later Marge doesn't do as much of the hippie anti-establishment stuff, so it doesn't work as well.
And I mean, Marge should not marry her dad.
Right. Yeah, at all.
Yeah. because we get him too, and he's like barely a character.
I was gonna say they could have played it where the date that she actually went to the prom with was more like her dad, and then she like settles for Homer. Like they could have done that, but it's not exactly that either.
Yeah. Also, Marge's mom is always funny this season
Yep.
whenever she shows up. Her in Bart versus Thanksgiving is one of my favorite things ever.
I'm sorry I came.
I have laryngitis, so it hurts to speak. But let me just say one thing. You never do anything right.
It's funny every time she talks, yeah. All right, let's go ahead and do this commentary, folks, because I don't want this to be longer than the last show after that stupid thing I made the mistake of saying at the beginning. So we're going to get right into this. So we're watching the first episode of Season 2. It's Bart Gets an F. I know it's a lot of people's favorite episode from looking at comments on the social media throughout the week. So you're welcome. And not, I shouldn't say that because I didn't pick it, but thanks to everybody that voted. And good job picking the episode that I know a lot of people wanted us to watch.
Thank you for making me right in the bet that Cap and I had. So,
you know what though? If we'd done the show yesterday, I would have won that bet. And that's what drives me the most crazy. Or probably. It depends on what the turnout was here, but
yeah.
All right, let's get into it. Here we go, folks. Make sure you're at timestamp 0. We're watching this, of course, on Disney Plus. The episode is 23 minutes long. We are, by my count now, at 2 hours and 25 minutes in the show. So if we start right now, it won't quite get to 3 hours.
Oh wait, before you press play,
No!
can I respond to a comment?
Yeah, no!
RJ Godzilla 81 said earlier that his least favorite episode is Treehouse of Horror, which I understand because it's very prototypey this season.
Yeah.
Because moving forward, it will be just parodies of horror things, while here it's more a parody of EC Comics, where we're more so doing that, and we're being more generalized instead of looking at specific things. And he just said that 4, 5, and 6 are perfect. And, of course, that's the holy trinity of Treehouse episodes.
It is kind of amazing that my main criticism, if I wasn't thinking of the EC Comics thing, which I honestly didn't pick up on until you mentioned that was specifically what they were doing. I mean, I can kind of see it if I'm... The problem is perspective. Like, I know Simpsons does the Treehouse thing. It's like, oh, okay, that starts from we're doing the Tales from the Crypt thing. It's a it's a bunch of vignettes in a horror vein. Oh, okay, but my main criticism would be it's like the stories are just not scary. They're not trying hard to be scary. And then like Bart keeps complaining about that. So, like, it's hard to criticize it for that too much because the show is aware of it. So, I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah, well, the EC Comics thing, that must be something that they're really big into. Because even when Simpsons breaks into comics, because I have issue 1 of the Simpsons comic, because it comes with the Futurama crossover. And if you flip that over, they have, like, a Tales from the Crypt style horror comic at the back. It's like 5 pages where Bart is the crypt keeper.
Oh, okay.
So that's clearly just like a thing that they liked and go to quite a bit.
I think that first vignette in that's doing a lot of poltergeist stuff, but like you said, other things, what's it called, Exorcist and stuff. It watched to me like how it should have ended, where it's like you get into one of these houses and there's a spirit, and it's like, what if a family just like called the bluff and just started talking to them? And I do love the ending of that, where it's like the ghost of the house just can't stand living in The Simpsons, so it does the poltergeist thing on purpose and just sucks the house into itself. That's great.
I also like the was it where he calls the like realtor or whatever, and he's like, "You never told me this house was built on an Indian burial ground."
He said he mentioned it 5 or 6 times.
That and Marge being like, stop being so mean and get some manners."
The alien vignette is okay. This is gonna be too long. Dadgummit, why did this happen? The alien vignette, I think, is
Curse you,
legitimately
RJ
lame.
Godzilla.
What's that?
It's a curse you, RJ Godzilla, for getting us on this.
No, I think the alien vignette is legitimately lame, in Sheets. Because they spend the whole episode doing all of these like really obvious innuendos about eating the Simpsons, and the end it's like, we were never gonna eat you. I'm like, I don't understand why you said any of the things you said then. Like, it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah,
doesn't
that's
work.
definitely the weakest of them. Which is funny because Kang and Kodos are in every single one, and they become staples of Treehouse of Horror.
Yeah, but their first appearance is not great,
Yeah,
and it's also
their
weird.
next
Like,
appearance is wonderful though, so it makes up for that.
it's also weird. Like, one of these things is not like the others thing, because it seems like when you watch the first two vignettes, it's like it's like there's a pattern of theme where it's like the Simpsons ruin everything collectively as a family. Like, they're so dysfunctional that you shouldn't associate with them. They're awful. And then the third vignette is just the Raven, which is great, but it's like, why is that in there? That doesn't fit that theme at all.
Yeah, yeah, and Matt Groening was worried that it would come off as pretentious, but I think it paid off for the most part because I that's probably my favorite vignette of it.
It's the best thing in there. Yeah, it's one of the neatest things they did in that show.
Yeah,
And the best thing in that vignette is just Homer yelling lines from that poem.
yeah, no, I love
So
the
take
part.
out thy take thy beak from out thy heart. It's fantastic. I love it so much.
I also love where he's like, "Sir or Madam."
Okay,
Sir.
we're watching this episode now, folks. Timestamp 0. Get ready to press play when I say now, which I'm about to do momentarily. Everybody, please press play right now. Oh.
And of course, we have the proper intro now, as opposed to season 1.
It's shorter. It's paced like I'm used to seeing it.
Yeah,
Okay, it's really funny that Bart's encouraging people to fly, given that wing of the hospital with the kid who tried to fly like Superman.
don't even mention the Three Stooges wing.
And there's like two or like at least 3 different lengths this season of the intro, depending on how much time they needed for the episode, which is a really smart way to get around the episode length problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can just cut off certain aspects of the intro.
Because, like, if it's a really meaty episode, and they do this a lot throughout the rest of the show, but if it's a really meaty episode, they'll just start at the garage right here. This is the intro. And this is all you needed, too. This could have been the intro all along. But I love my chalkboard gags.
Oh yeah, no, those are great. And like we talked about last time, they do a good job of summing up each character in the intro.
That's right, Buzzsim. You don't have to dig out your DVDs. Although I still wish I had mine so I could watch the commentaries. I don't know what I was thinking. I didn't know it had commentaries on every episode. I wouldn't have done that.
Well, and depending if we get the MJ episode next season, we might have to pull out DVDs.
We'll just have to not stream that one. We'll just have to not include that as a thing people can vote on. We'll have to watch it, certainly, but...
Yeah, well, no, of course. I don't think that would win. I mean, who knows?
There were places where I thought you were, Hemingway. So my favorite bit here is that when he goes through the pirates, he's actually right on one of them and doesn't realize it.
Yeah, it's like the second last one, too.
Treasure Island was my favorite book as a kid.
Oh, and I never read it. I almost did it for a book report. I got it from my dad.
You should have done your book report like this.
Well, I'm on Subject 879's horror show, and there have been multiple times where I've gone, I would give this film a 9.
And no one knows what you're talking about, but that's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
As long as it's funny to Austin, he doesn't care.
Oh yeah, I only seek to entertain myself, not others.
The show's also really smart, but this is maybe a weird point, but it's really smart about framing. Like that that bit is funnier because it's a close up inside profile. I don't know why, but like it could have zoomed out, it could have shot it farther back. There's something about that headshot makes that joke funnier. So again, he's doing the thing his dog will do later. I love
We
this
also
arcade
get like
game.
funny arcade games. Yeah.
Escape from Grandma's house.
There's one later with Martin where it's just like having a conversation with, I think it's like My Dinner with Andre or something, the uh arcade game, and he's like, tell me more. He presses the tell me more button. It's something like that. It's some like conversation.
So you always like to talk about exaggerated facial expressions. I guess they do it the most with Bart and Lisa when they're on the couch watching Itchy and Scratchy, right? Seems like they always have like really exaggerated laughing expressions.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. We do that quite a bit.
There's a really nice touch here on the fridge where we'll see that the last thing we put on the fridge for Bart was a cat he drew in the first grade.
Yeah.
And Bart's upset that we're covering it up. Like that's how underachieving he is. He's still like sort of bragging about just a thing he drew 3 years ago.
Oh, this gorilla movie night thing's pretty great
I know,
too.
Austin. I get that I still need to watch King Kong. You don't have to keep rubbing it in my face, okay? Why is it that you bring it up every freaking show?
It's not my fault. Although when you finally watch it, when you finish, you need to go, it's not his fault. He's different.
I realize you didn't bring it up. That was a joke. I was kidding.
But you do need to watch that.
I know. Every time. So we are convinced that this bit here must have been the inspiration for Bart's Nightmare, the video game. When you get, and of course, whenever I see this episode, I expect to like have a much longer nightmare that doesn't have, but or to, like have a nightmare there at all, I guess. See, I keep expecting that there's actually a dream sequence there. There's not. But the drawing in the game of him falling at his desk looks really similar to that.
Oh, this has one of Otto's best lines in the entire show with the, hey, that's okay, Bart. I failed the fourth grade too. Now I drive the
Now I
bus.
drive the buzz. Look at how I turned out. So the twins here throughout episodes cannot decide if they're fans of Bart or not. That's a thing I picked up this season.
Oh, yeah.
Because here on the bus, they're going to pretend like they're his friend, and they're his friends, and they're going to give him wrong answers for a test. But then later, they vote for him, and well, they don't actually vote. Nobody votes.
Well, they're the ones that nominate him.
That's what it is. They nominated him in the first place. That's why I had that whole point.
Well, Sharon Terry is evil.
Mr. Roboto popped in and said hi, Cap and Connor, and then changed it to Austin. That's Austin.
I can be both. I mean, this show's really good, but I would much rather be watching some David Lynch right now.
That was the best Connor impression. That was really good. Okay, so you mentioned something about this nurse that like we don't keep doing nurses after this.
Oh yeah, whenever we do the school nurse, there's not normally a specific nurse character. It'll just be like other characters filling that role.
Interestingly, Bart and Lisa will both be sick from school this season, and one of them is legitimate and the other one is not.
Oh yeah.
Remember back
When
when people only had one TV? I'm sorry, what was that?
well, I was gonna say, well, and then because Lisa gets the mumps, and Bart like complains at her for wasting it.
You wasted the chicken pox. Don't waste the mumps. Do you feel like they forget about the cat a lot? Because I'm seeing the cat on his bed going, that cat doesn't pop up as often as maybe it ought to.
Yeah, I mean the cat's not super important as much as Santa's little helper is as a pet. Like we don't tend to do stories with the cat.
I know,
I mean
but
there are
it's
stories.
there. They lives there. It's not a big house.
I don't know,
That
a wizard.
that spectacular payoff. This is such a wonderfully well written episode where she says this test is almost as bad as Millhouse's, and Millhouse is who he just cheated off of. That's great.
Here's another season one leftover. The
Yes.
school psychiatrist.
The psychiatrist that sounds like Burns before Burns sounds like Burns.
Yeah. Blah blah blah.
Daniel, we're watching Bart Gets an F right now. He said, which one are they watching now? This whole thing wasn't commentaries. We're just doing one at the end of the show here.
This episode's so good, it's hard to be like, oh yeah, I gotta talk over this.
Yeah. And this is where it's really poignant to me, where like they don't get, like, I think the psychiatrist has pegged him some, and nobody else really gets why he's performing as poorly in school as he is, and he takes the wrong lesson from all of this. Oh, okay, I'm an idiot. Like,
Yeah, Bart's like little speech there is really great.
well, and the thing is, the psychiatrist is now he's spot on in what the problem is. He doesn't get it all into an insight as to why he's that way. Like because of course, he doesn't know the family dynamic, right? He doesn't know his relationship with Homer and everything. But his in my mind, and I love that I can talk about this show on this level. His solution is wrong. Because his solution is just repeat the fourth grade. His solution should be, if he has to repeat the fourth grade, we figure out how he best learns, and then he goes through it differently. And I think they're thinking about that because they keep doing jokes about people repeatedly repeating grades.
Yeah.
Now I drive the bus.
And of course, oh wait, no, it's not here yet.
No, this is going to be the part where he's 40 and has a kid that looks exactly like him. Which is disturbing, by the way. This could have been my most disturbing moment. That's looking forward. They're all sitting at a desk with computers. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
That's more or less the way it is now. I mean, not really, but you have a lot of smart classrooms now. Everybody's got a tablet.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So this is what I was talking about earlier. This is another one of those places where it kind of takes a turn I wasn't expecting. Because when it has him go to what's his face?
Martin.
Martin. Thank you. I had like 6 M names and none of them were right. He goes to Martin, and I really expect him to like start getting more studious. And that's not really what happens. I wouldn't expect him to turn Martin around and make him more like him. That's not as much the obvious thing to do at this point in TV history, I don't think. Like, the obvious thing would be, oh, he now understands what the point, like why it's important to do well at school, and he finds like something in it he appreciates. He doesn't find, like, even when he's trying really hard at the end, he doesn't latch on to anything in the studies where, oh, this is really interesting now, I don't really care about this, until he just starts, like, bawling at the end, and then finds like a connection in the history. He's like, oh, I actually remember all that, even though I don't care about any of it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And
It's
they got
much
Martin,
smarter.
like, oh yeah, definitely. And they got Martin nailed down. Him being like, you need an adequate plant life is very much Martin. It's like immediately we know this character too.
The equation he writes on that is one of the funniest gags in this episode. I love that.
What's that equation? I'm not sure.
I'm trying to remember what exactly it was, because we're talking over it, but it was something about the ratio of I can't remember if it was like how much like studying you do versus
Well, it's how close you are to the teacher versus.
That's what it was.
That's right. Yeah. No, I was looking at the actual equation when you said it. That's why I was like, oh, is that something? And then that's right. That's what that is.
Yeah, they talk. He talks about it.
Yeah.
I usually watch these with subtitles when I'm doing commentaries, but I forgot to turn them on, and I don't want the thing to pause, so I'm not doing that right now.
Oh yeah.
Mr. Roboto wants to know if there's a Springfield in Kansas and/or Canada. There is a Springfield in Missouri, not too far away from me, where some of my wife's family lives. But there is not, as far as I know, a Springfield, Kansas. I don't know if there's one anywhere in Canada, though.
I don't know. I've never seen one, but I mean, there's a lot of just small towns, and I don't know, like, outside of my province.
Is it true, Austin, that eventually...
It looks like there is one.
Say that again?
It looks like there is one, yeah.
Is it... Well, now we know. Is it... So this is where he's going to pray. And again, a lot of religion this season. He's going to pray, and then there's going to be a snow day, and he gets lucky with that, and he almost squanders it. This is a really great example of a protagonist who refuses to change, and then at the very last minute he finally takes that opportunity, which we'll see Bart do again and again and again. And every time it happens, you really expect him to not ever actually take that opportunity. And it's really difficult for him. And again, a lot of that is because of bad role models. Because Homer usually won't actually take that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Am I right about saying that like Bart will at the last minute, but Homer generally doesn't? Or like he'll learn a lesson kind of more passively. Like you look at I forget it now. You look at the episode at the end with the retreat with the fish, and like, well, no, he does sort of try to do the right thing at that point. He just accidentally winds up in the boat. So I guess he will take good opportunities, or actual opportunities to change too. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Well, I think it's important here too that we're moving Lisa more to be the kind of moral center, where she's the one that tells Bart that he can't waste it.
Yeah. Is it true that a few years ago they did an episode where they finally said what state Springfield was in?
Not that I know of. No, I don't think so.
I remember reading that somewhere, but I never saw it, so I don't know if it's true.
Well, they make jokes where they'll be like, here are the states that kind of connect to Springfield, but it's all stuff that are like all over the country, so like you can't actually pinpoint it and just stuff like that.
There's like 6 in the country. Maybe there's more than that. I forget. There's a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, that's a big thing in the movie where it's like here are like the 6 states that border Springfield, and they're all just like all over the place.
That's really funny.
Yeah, but yeah, not to my knowledge, because the whole point has always been there could be anywhere. There's like a Springfield in every state or whatever.
So this is kind of I see is like a parallel gag to the one we talked about earlier in Itchy and Scratchy and Marge, where we because in that we panned across a long landscape of a bunch of kids all finally going outside. And we don't do a pan thing here, but we do a similar gag here with like just everybody having fun in the snow and it being like the best day ever. And it's like the most exaggerated possible thing with everybody and his dog in exactly the same place in Springfield.
When you
great.
got a sideshow Bob and a cop next to him, the background.
I didn't catch that before.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, they throw everybody in there. You even get Jacques, Marge's bowling instructor. So this is reminiscent of season 1. I don't know if you remember in Bart the Genius. There's the section where he's doing the math test. I think that's what it is.
Oh
and
yeah.
Him on the train, and we like also adopt a different art style for it.
Yeah. I didn't connect that, but that's a good point.
The sled.
Yeah, this color palette is really weird, where it's black and white, except it's got pinks and blues.
Yeah, that John Hancock line gets me every time too. That's great.
Early on, we'll do like flashbacks or daydreams or nightmares and things because it informs a character, not just to like do a side gag real quick. And later seasons will, if memory serves, do more of that kind of thing, of that kind of Family Guy thing, where you'll just like jump all around to fill time, and you're not really like the story itself is like 6 or 8 minutes of an episode because we just keep jumping to things.
Yeah, like you get more cutaways. Yeah. Yeah, this season we're much more just in the moment.
And the reason this works is because we just saw him being proactive and trying so hard. Like I also love that there's a lot of comedy in how exaggerated the snow sequence is, but it needs to be that exaggerated to be as tempting as it is for him. So this ridiculous joke that informs a character, that's the kind of stuff that put the show so much on the map, I think.
Oh yeah, well we talked earlier about how they could have easily just rode that popularity, but I think the fact that they were smarter is the reason why it's still on today. Like I don't know if it still would be around if it weren't as smart as it was.
And hard to say even how many seasons it would go, because we got to remember that Fox was still kind of a new network, and we didn't talk about the crazy choice they made to put it on in the same time slot as The Cosby Show, which was huge and still one of the most popular shows on TV, and that it finally started beating that show in the ratings, I think the year after this.
Oh, okay. I like that. I don't think that undercuts the moment, but I like the I passed thing, and then I kissed the teacher.
No, and I think that works just because it gets in the mind of a kid that young. Like it seems like that's the thing he would say there. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
It helps that they're not trying to do like a really like biting satirical joke there or something like really off the wall. Like that's a cute ender, and it's in a way it's kind of just reminding you you're still watching a comedy. Like it doesn't undercut it. I don't know that it's probably not true that every episode ends on a joke because it's supposed to be a comedy, but I think sometimes we'll do that where if we get really really heavy, we don't undercut the seriousness, but we do have to make it light to remind people what they're watching. I mean, I can, we do that quite a bit.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And that commentary is already over.
Over as fast as it began. Oh, bless me. Ugh.
Well, if you hear that sound, it means we're all out of time.
Oh, right in my mic. I'm sorry, everybody.
Folks, we're 5 minutes away from tying our last show for length, so we're going to go ahead and bid everybody farewell. I know Austin's going to do everything he can to keep me on the air for 5 more minutes.
Keep us in.
And so's Mr. Roboto. Capper, 3 tornadoes into a super tornado, real or a myth. Mr. Roboto, we're doing Simpsons, not Smallville. I think that's a thing that can happen, but it's really unlikely. I don't know. Just because I live in Kansas doesn't make me a tornado expert.
Speaking of tornadoes, there's one bit in an episode of The Simpsons where I think Homer and Bart are in a car, and they put in like cold air out of one like vent and hot air out of the other, and it makes a tornado in the car. That's a scene I think about every now and then.
Well, folks, I hope you had a good time with us. We certainly did. Austin, I feel like we covered quite a bit. I hope we talked enough about all the episodes we ought to have, because there were a couple things that almost didn't come up, and I'm glad they finally did.
Yeah, I'm glad I thought about that, like the episode where Homer's dying, and that, it's like RJ Godzilla 81 brought up Treehouse of Horror.
Yeah,
so obviously that's another big thing.
The one where he's dying, I didn't write down anything in there as like legitimately heartwarming, but it is like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's
but not
one
any
of those
specific
things,
moment. Kind of just that whole sequence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's something like you obviously know he's not gonna die, but like the episode still works really well.
Yeah, and also I just love the absurdity of how he almost dies, and it still makes you feel something.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
He doesn't think he's
ridiculous.
That whole thing is a ridiculous roller coaster, right? It's like he just wants to stay home and eat pork chops. That's another thing that comes from. Dang it, we are going to hit 3 hours. That's the thing that comes. Excellent. That's the thing. Another thing that comes from his personality. We're not losing who Homer is. Homer likes routine. He doesn't like to have to think. He doesn't want to try anything new. He's afraid of change. And there's even an episode that brings this up and is kind of profound about it, where I forget what the context is, but it's like Homer's really stubborn. Well, no, he's not stubborn. He doesn't because he's an underachiever. He doesn't fight anything. He doesn't stand up for himself. But at the same time, he does the same thing all the time so that he doesn't have to be proactive. And so it starts from that place, and then he doesn't want to go eat sushi because he wants to stay home and have pork chops. And then he goes and has sushi and he eats it like candy, and then he gets, the famed poison. Why is it on the menu?
Well, it's because the master has to cut it, but his very talented hands were busy. And that, of course, has George Takei in it.
Yes. I didn't look that up, but it sounded enough like George Takei. I was pretty sure it was George Takei, but yeah.
Well, I feel like he comes in here and there in this show, and he definitely does in Futurama.
My favorite cartoon casting choice for George Takei is in Superhero Squad, where he voices Galactus. It's just the best ever choice. Like, it's amazing.
That's bizarre.
It's really funny.
Yeah, I don't even know where you would come to that.
You'll have to see some of that. It's really funny. Yeah, it's just obvious intentional stunt casting, and it's really funny.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Well, folks, once again...
Well, how many minutes are we at before we break the time limit?
Minute and a half.
I can do this all day.
Austin, how many Simpsons shirts do you own?
Only two, surprisingly.
That
It's
is
this
surprising.
one, and they were all GIFs too. I have this one, and I have one that is just like a collage of different like episode
Oh
stuff.
yeah, RJ. Sorry, RJ. That joke is brilliant. Oh no, don't panic. There's a map to the hospital on the back of the menu. So good.
Yeah, no, that's great. That also has one of my favorite things on the show where Homer is like eating a bunch of stuff, but it's really just him eating the same thing over and over again because it's still there when he eats it.
Oh
Just
yeah, I
I like
remember that.
that
Now
like
that you say it,
animation thing. Yeah, yeah, because he like eats one, then he eats a second one, and then he eats like the same one like
I didn't
10
catch that until the
times.
second. I was like, how is that happening? How does it keep replenishing itself?
There's a bit in Homer's Barbershop Quartet where he's eating brownies and it's that same thing. It's great.
We're 30 seconds away. It feels like New Year's Eve right now. Once again, folks, thanks for watching. Really hope you had a good time with us. We'll be back in the not too distant future, hopefully for season 3. We're gonna bring on, if everything works out, my stepdad, the Jeff. He really wanted to be on the show with us, so we're gonna have a guest for the first time. He's gonna watch season 3 and talk about it with us. That is the plan right now. Hopefully that works out. And we are also planning on doing a special on the video games of The Simpsons from this period, from the early mid 90s. Right after that. So that's the plan right now. Hopefully that all works out. Of course, my life is really up in the air right now. We're just a couple months away from my wife delivering our twins, so I don't know how much of that will get done before then, but my hope is that we can do at least that season 3 video before then. I think that will probably happen, but that's the plan. Austin, thanks once again so much for all your hard work and for making this whole thing a possibility.
Trust me, it's not work. It's not work for me.
And I want to thank you guys so much for watching. We really did not expect the viewership from last video. I didn't know if anybody would care about this, so it was really exciting to me that that was watched as well as it was, and that we've even had the turnout that we have for the live shows, especially as late as we've had to do them. And anyway, we're gonna go ahead and get going. We will see you again real soon with more stuff here on Geflution tomorrow night. If you're watching this tomorrow, it'll be obviously tonight because it's already 1 in the morning here. We're gonna be doing a commentary on Mortal Kombat. Me and DJ. So
Oh,
from the
thanks.
1995 movie. So pop in for that if you're able to do that. We're gonna keep trying to do commentaries every couple weeks if we can. And we'll see you. We'll see you real soon. I was Captain Logan,
And I
and
was
this was
somebody.
the Day Ghost. I don't know why I did that. I never make you do that.
We needed the pause to make sure this video is longer and longer. Although next time we're gonna have to go even longer.
We're gonna have 3 people. I imagine that won't be hard. We'll just have to tell Jeff, like, look, these go long, man. We get thorough, and also
Yeah, well,
tangents.
if we have a third person, that should be like double the time, right?
So Jeff, what we didn't tell you was that we have to do a 6-hour video now. Why? Austin's insane. That's the reason.
I hope you're prepared for a 24-hour season discussion.
All right, we're gonna bid you farewell, folks. Later, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Oh, hey, Austin.
Mhm.
Shh, dun 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 dun.
Okay, so when Disney bought that, they put Mickey Mouse in the background of that, and that annoys me.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, no, they put him in the background of the Gracie Films logo, and I don't like that.
Okay, I'm glad you told me that, but that was my end. I had that plan the whole time, and it didn't actually end with it.